This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
And we are back at it with a big Monday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Hope you had a great weekend, everyone. Welcome to the program. Huss and Reem with you. Lots to get to on a packed edition of the program today, coming out of Friday's massive trade deadline show. Thanks again to everyone that jumped on and anyone that found us for the first time on Monday. Great to have you with us. And two games to talk about. A huge week at home coming up for the Winnipeg Jets, and Luke Schenn met the media today, or is meeting the media today. We'll look to have that for you a little later on. So tons on the Jets post-deadline. We'll also dive into everything else that happened around the National Hockey League. We'll sort of do a full trade deadline recap of the moves that happened around the league with Dennis Bernstein of the fourth period, and then a little later on, Mike McIntyre will join us. Mike down at the rink today to speak with the Winnipeg Jets, including Luke Schenn, Scott Arniel, and more. And for those of you that missed Kevin Cheveldayoff recapping the deadline and what he had to say, we'll have that for you coming up as well. Mike McIntyre, Dennis Bernstein on the program, tons of Winnipeg Jets talk, and the landscape of the Central Division and the National Hockey League as we move into the final, 17, 18 games for most teams of the regular season in the next 5 weeks and push towards the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, I do want to thank the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Of course, our great partners at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Canadian Club, Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, and Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Wallace & Wallace, fansfirst.ca, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, the Winnipeg Jets, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and of course we'll get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Congratulations to, or shout out to everybody in chat that's joining us right now. Hey, there's Pat Canuga. What's up, Pat? And Remo, we'll kick things off just before we get down to business by congratulating Schickster, who was our top WST representative last night in the poker tourney. Schickster finishing fourth. Not as great performances by you or I last night, but still another really, really fun poker tourney with the gang from Edmonton Sports Talk, Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the Lock Shop last night over at Coolbet.
Yeah, we're getting some turnouts, good turnouts for these. It's fun. So I got in there, got knocked out earlier than I would have liked, still trying to get back on the wagon. You're playing pretty well, Huss, after your trip to Costa Rica. Nice bump there, but very fun. Nice to see people get out. Shout out to Randy D, who took my bounty. He's a very strong player, and among all WSTers or all players as well. So
he was the defending champ going into last night.
Yeah. So it was a great time, and I'm looking forward to the next one. If you want to, be notified, subscribe to our mailing list on our website, winnipegsportstalk.com. Scroll to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to get up to date on what's happening in and around WST. Perfect time to mention to get on that as well. Or I'll just tell you, March 20th, which is a week Thursday, we're going to be down at Boston Pizza Garden City for the Jets-Oilers game with our friends at Little Brown Jug and Boston Pizza. We had an unbelievable turnout filling Boston Pizza Polo Park earlier this season for that Jets-Detroit game. So we're going to do it one more time with our friends at LBJ. March 20th, Boston Pizza Garden City. Make a point of joining us that night. And by the way, speaking of upcoming Jets events, March 28th is the next and final WST game of the month. up in section 316. We're 5-0 on the season, looking to make it a perfect 6-0 against the Devils Friday, March 28th. Our original allotment of tickets all sold out. We got some more added, but I would suggest that if you do want to join us, do not wait. Jump on those tickets. Your ticket price includes a beverage of your choice, which is going to be utilized through the Jets 360 app. So as I said, if you haven't made it out yet to a game this year, why don't you join us that Friday? And if you have, let's finish strong and get a big crew there for the Jets and Devils. Again, winnipegjets.com/WST. Here's where you'll find the link on that if you're listening on the podcast. And of course, if you're with us on YouTube, there's a link in the description. We're going to listen to Kevin Cheveldayoff in just a minute for what he had to say on Friday post-trade deadline. Obviously yesterday, not a great game for the Jets. They lose in Carolina 4-2. But the Friday night game against the New Jersey Devils, I think at a time when a lot of Jet fans were feeling a little nervous, frankly, when you looked at what happened in the Central Division. Brock Nelson going to Colorado, Mikko Rantanen going to Dallas. And the Jets with a couple nice depth adds in Luke Schenn and Brandon Tanev, but not able to get that difference maker in the Central Division. And that game on Friday night was a much-needed reminder that this team is still a very, very good team, absolutely beating the doors off the New Jersey Devils on Friday night, with Brandon Tanev making his debut. And I have to say, over the course of the next 36 hours, just talking with friends or bumping into them, the return of the Tanev crazy eyes was a big topic. It did not take long for him to remind Winnipeg Jet fans what he brings to the table. And dare I say, man, it's fun having Brandon Tanev on your team. Very easy guy to cheer for. And he does bring something that, the Jets really didn't have, that incredible energy and intensity. So anyways, a real nice start to the post-trade deadline portion of the schedule for the Jets with that win in New Jersey on Friday night. Yesterday, not as much. I guess in some ways it's another reminder the other way that there's a lot of really good teams in this National Hockey League, and you can't take anything for granted.
Yeah, every game's going to be a battle from here on out, and, Jets had a tough time against Carolina. Don't want to pull out the excuse meter here. I mean, Friday was back-to-back, and they, dominated New Jersey. I loved Adam Lowry, just the sneak attack on Simon Nemec there with a nice goal. But, Brandon Tanev, great to see him in the lineup, just picking up where he left off, although he's wearing number 73. Luke Schenn at the skate today, wearing number 5, which you correctly predicted on Friday's show. So I think there was certainly some disappointment, Huss, with the way the deadline went for the Jets. You'd like to see them add a more impactful player, but, this is the group that's gotten them this far. And I said on Friday's show, all they need to do is come out and just put a beat down on New Jersey and you'll forget all about this. And what did they do? Went out and took advantage of New Jersey's mistakes and, beat them 6-1. A bit of a tougher one last night in Carolina, but hey, they're still in first place. They're still ahead of Dallas, who got a win yesterday against Vancouver, got the overtime loss on Saturday to Edmonton. So we're going to be standings watching us. This is the home stretch, less than 20 games to go, and very, very important to win the division and avoid Colorado or Dallas in the playoffs, because they both, Colorado looked great on Saturday against Toronto as well. So this is going to be a fun final few weeks here of the season.
Yeah, Saturday was an interesting night of scoreboard watching. Of course, the Jets got their win on Friday. Weren't in action on Saturday, so we had a chance to watch on Hockey Night in Canada both of the big central rivals. You saw the Leafs and Colorado go at it in the early game, and then the Oilers in Dallas later on. And listen, the Leafs were up 4-2 in complete control of that game, and then the Avalanche made a statement to the rest of the league that the new and improved Colorado Avalanche are a problem. They ended up putting up 7, I believe, on Toronto and getting that win. And the Dallas Stars, despite falling behind 4-1, made it interesting before losing 5-4 to the Edmonton Oilers, which was nice because with the Jets win, they had that 8-point cushion. But with the Jets losing yesterday and Dallas beating the Vancouver Canucks, that 8-point cushion went right back to 6 points. Dallas still with a game in hand, and a huge game coming up Friday night here in Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Jets hosting the Dallas Stars. Of course, the Jets play the New York Rangers tomorrow. You know what's crazy, Reem? Dallas does not play until Friday night.
Oh, so they're going to, yeah.
They're off this entire week. I would assume that they went back to Dallas after the game last night. They'll get a chance to practice for a few days. You know, we talk so much about the schedule and how compacted it is. I was not expecting to see Dallas with an entire week off, basically 5 days or 4 days until they play here in Winnipeg on Friday. But that is the scenario. You know, again, we'll hear a little bit from Arnie, a post game from yesterday. But Carolina is still a really, really good team. I mean, they had been favorite in the East pretty much the entire year. Now, that's not the case anymore. You've got the Florida Panthers that have passed them. I think everyone feels that that's a team that's ready to make another big run and try and defend their championship. But it was a game where Carolina really, really made it difficult for the Winnipeg Jets to get to the net, to generate scoring chances. And I think maybe most noteworthy, Remis, you know, while Logan Stanley's had ups and downs so far, I mean, the concern is just the ability to do what you need defensemen to do, and that is make quality plays, not get caught out of position, not make mistakes. Unfortunately, he was in the wrong spot a couple times, featured on goals against, and it was that third pairing of he and Colin Miller that were caught out there for both of the 5-on-5 goals, which brings us to some intrigue this week as to where Luke Schenn is fitting and how this lineup will look, particularly on the blue line for the first game post the acquisition of Schenn and the trade deadline tomorrow night against the Rangers.
Yeah, you know, as far as today's skate goes, to give us, a look in as what they're going to do for tomorrow's pairings, it's just an optional today, so not everyone there. And how is Luke Schenn fitting in off the ice? Well, Scott Arniel, Mitch Clinton putting out on X just now that Scott Arniel said Scheifele picked up Luke Schenn from the airport last night, and Brandon Tanev and Luke Schenn are both staying at Scheifele's house for the moment. So great for team bonding, team chemistry yesterday. We hope to have those comments on video later on in the show from the Jets website. But I'm curious. I'm sure Schenn will get in. He's wearing number 5. Will he be on with Logan Stanley, who's been in just about every game this year, or will they look to switch things up? I imagine it'll be Schenn Stanley. That's what we've been penciling in, but we won't know until tomorrow morning.
You know, it is funny how many of the biggest and most effective acquisitions at the trade deadline aren't the biggest splashes. Did we see a little bit of that last night? Didn't the Canes get Mark Jankowski for like a 5th-round pick, Remis? He had 2 goals last night against the Winnipeg Jets and was a huge factor in that win for Carolina over Winnipeg.
Yeah, it was certainly. Hold on, sir. You cut out your audio there for me. Talking about Mark Jankowski?
Yeah, I was talking about Jankowski, who basically, came in for a 5th-round pick, was a bit of an afterthought at the deadline, and making Eric Tulsky look pretty smart yesterday with the 2 goals against the Jets.
Yeah, well, how about Logan Stankoven getting a power play goal as well? So I think Carolina, look, they're a good team up and down the lineup. They have guys that can score. Jack Roslovic getting in. I mean, the Jordan Martinook, Jordan Stahl making an impact. I mean, Martinook was all over the playoffs last year. Was like I took their whole team in playoff. Was like the only guy I didn't have, and he was scoring all their goals. So I know there's a lot of people saying Eric Tulsky took an L, but I actually like the moves that he's made. While they may not be better, than they were the start of the season with Natchez, I think they're set up really nicely going forward. And I think they've got some smart people, even if the Athletic Agents poll says Tom Dundon is the worst owner in the league. So they're a pretty good team, and they certainly showed it yesterday.
Yeah, nice one. Nice start to his time in Carolina for Stankoven. And I'll say this, Steve Warrior, Winnipeg native, former AGM of the Panthers, had a really interesting read on the weekend at Puckpedia on the deals that were made, the stones that it took Eric Tulsky to do what he did, and actually talked as well about the Jets and, maybe poured a little bit of the water on the disappointment around parts of the Jet franchise, or fan base, I should say. So anyways, I'll point that out, and you can check that out if you haven't already. I'll tell you what, considering we're talking about this game, we'll get to Chevy in a minute, Reem. Why don't we get to just kind of wrap yesterday's loss to Carolina and the games on the weekend before we sort of dive into the new players that have come. We'll hear a little bit from Brandon Tanev as well. But Scott Arniel spoke yesterday. And one thing we didn't mention that we should, because this will be touched on during the comments, Remo. The Jets were down 2-0, but it looked like they had tied it. Cole Perfetti with a deflection that was definitely high, but I kind of thought that was not conclusive and it was going to score. It didn't end up scoring, and it did sort of kill the momentum that the Jets had at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, you got to throw your hands up on these reviews as you don't know what they're going to do, and certainly unfortunate. Perfetti. We should also mention, has unfortunate for Vlad Nemestikov, took a hit to the head from Jordan Staal. Only got a minor there for interference, but he's in concussion protocol. We don't have an update today. They said he's, after game, he's going to be reevaluated. And that's a big blow. I mean, this is why you wanted them to acquire another center, Huss, because, what if someone got hurt? Who do you have coming in? Dave Gustafson got hurt before, and Kupari got hurt. I think he skated today in a regular jersey, but we'll have to wait and see tomorrow. But they've moved Barron to center, which was interesting with Tanev coming in. So we'll have to see what happens tomorrow with the lines as well. If Kupari's good to go and Nemestikov, I mean, that's two of your top four centers, Huss. There's some big injuries.
Well, and listen, I said this on the weekend, or I guess on Friday's show at the end. Part of the maybe disappointment of not getting Nelson, but not getting anyone else is, what happens if one of those top couple centers gets hurt? And it happened yesterday. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Vlad will be back in the lineup for tomorrow's game. But if it's not tomorrow, very soon. Of course, Adam Lowry moving up. Yesterday after Nemestikov was ruled out for the game, skating alongside Perfetti and Nikolai Ehlers. All right, before we listen to Kevin Cheveldayoff, let's just wrap the weekend. Here's Scott Arniel with his thoughts on yesterday's 4-2 loss in Carolina to wrap the road trip at 2-2.
Obviously we took 6 minors. We took 3 in the first period. Kind of lost a lot of our flow. We did a good job on our kill, but the flow of the first wasn't there. Gave up a couple of coverage goals in our end of the rink, and they're a good team and they pressure. We knew that was going to be what was coming at us. At times we did some good things. We had some opportunities where I didn't think we shot the puck. We could have maybe attacked the net a little bit more. End of the day, it just didn't seem like we had it tonight.
In terms of coverage, is that just maybe communication, or what did you see on that front?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, they're a shot volume team. They attacked the net. They threw some pucks. In there, and that was the second one, kind of a scramble. The first one we got beat in a rush. But at the end of the day, we knew what Carolina's throwing at us, and we just didn't get to our A game fast enough.
Yeah, Reem, Arnie did make a great point. I mean, the 6 penalties were a big factor in the game. And the Jets had been so disciplined. I don't think they had 6 penalties in their 4 previous games total, or maybe that's what the number was in previous 4 games. So, I mean, against a team like Carolina, first of all, if you take 12 minutes out of the game where you're not really able to score, in games where goals are at a premium, that's tough, but you're also putting a lot of pressure on your penalty kill unit. And we did see the Stankoven goal that, really kind of gave them that comfortable 3-goal lead early in the third period come as a result of multiple power play opportunities, the one that finally went in.
Yeah, special teams, certainly a story. Yesterday, the Jets power play not able to get on the board, 0 for 3. And, giving them 6 power plays, tough. You lose momentum, and that's like 12 minutes in power plays. That's, 1/8 of the game? It's a pretty significant chunk, Huss, as you said, to be, at a disadvantage. But I think you can look at it as a positive as well, with the power play stopping, or the penalty kill stopping 5 of them. So special teams, certainly a story. And when the Jets are winning, they're scoring goals. They're scoring on the power play. And, they got some goals from depth yesterday, but it was the top guys that couldn't come through. It was Alex Iafallo, who made it 3-1, and Adam Lowry with 1 at the end. I guess
the Lowry goal was hilarious.
Nice garbage time goal. So
they passed it right to him, and he just shot it right into the net.
Well, he's on a bit of a heater here, Lowry. It's going in for him.
Well, that's exactly what you'd like to see. Adam Lowry getting hot. Well, they may need to lean on Lowry even more, depending on what's the story with Vlad Nemetsnikov. But here's Arniel on the effectiveness of Carolina's penalty killing unit that kept the Jets' power play off the board.
Just like they're 5-on-5, they're really aggressive, and they're going to come. I thought, zone time we had it. We just never got ourselves inside to attack. We got away from the pressure, but it kept us a little bit on the outside. So, lesson learned. We see teams like that come at us with pressure. We just got to make sure that we get some inside attacks and take it from there.
What's a position he's played before? What did you see from Morgan Barron in the middle of the last couple games here?
Yeah, this was another big test. Against a fast team, and he's learning on the fly here. And so tried to put him in some situations that, whether that's D-zone face-offs or got out a couple times against Aho. And, those are things for him that just to continue to work on.
So Scott O'Neill from yesterday, and one more. Michael mentioned the hit on Nemetsnikov that knocked him out of the game. It seemed like Carolina was, that certainly felt like it was somewhat of a retaliatory hit for a hit that Vlad had put on Sebastian Aho earlier. Here's what Arnie had to say about the hit that put Nemetsnikov in the concussion protocol and the disallowed goal to Cole Perfetti.
Just like they're 5-on-5, they're really aggressive, and they're going to come. I thought, zone time we had it. We just never got ourselves inside to attack. We got away from the pressure, but it kept us a little bit on the outside. So, lesson learned. We see teams like that come at us with pressure. We just got to make sure that we get some inside attacks and take it from there.
What's a position he's?
All right, I clicked the wrong clip. This is the correct clip.
All right.
Yeah, he went in, obviously, spotter or whatever, and then just we'll have to wait until we get home. Obviously, we got a flight home and see how he is tomorrow.
What were your thoughts about the hit itself?
I thought it was a hit to the head. I thought maybe go to a 5-minute, and if they realize that maybe it isn't, then they can reduce from there. But I think that was more than 2 minutes.
On the Perfetti tip, did you get a definitive angle that it was above, or what on the coach's one?
Those are crapshoot for me when it comes to those high sticks. I don't know how they go about it. Crossbar. I don't know if Fetz is taller than the crossbar, but at the end of the day, we thought it was a goal, but it is what it is.
That's the exact conversation I was having with my pals watching the game. Well, it's sort of above his shoulders, but is he taller than the crossbar? Well, they obviously thought that it was a high stick. But, from where it hit on his stick, it was incredibly close. They called it a goal. I was a little surprised it was overturned, but obviously may have had a rooting interest in the game last night. Okay, listen, before we get to Kevin Cheveldayoff from Friday, Brandon Tanev did make his debut with the Winnipeg Jets on Friday. He was a ball of energy, getting into a scrum where we saw the return of the Psycho Tanev eyes, and certainly made his impression, his presence felt. He spoke at the intermission again, and he seemed very, very excited to be heading to the playoffs, back where it all started with the Winnipeg Jets. Here's Tanev on putting that Jets jersey on again from Friday.
Very familiar. It's a very good team, and it's an easy team to come into when there's so many good players, and they make things easy for you. Obviously, it's a tough day in terms of getting here, getting acclimated, and But I mean, when you go out there, you put a familiar jersey on that you're so used to. You're excited to play, and like I said earlier, I've had a big smile on my face all day.
You heard about the Jets' interest earlier in the week, or how did things come together for you?
I mean, it was one of those things where you're waiting and it comes as it is. I mean, I kind of knew I was getting traded, didn't know what was happening, and I was happy to hear that Winnipeg had interest, and I'm glad we could get things worked out.
All right. Now, this won't mean as much for podcast listeners, but Reem, can we talk about this shirt that Brandon Tanev was wearing? He's got a nice new jersey. Does he need a new shirt to wear during games? That one, or maybe is that his Winnipeg Jets shirt that he had when he was last here 7 years ago, and he's still wearing it?
I'm really fascinated by guys and their hockey equipment habits. Some guys just wear the same stuff that they've been wearing for years here, and don't change it up. You're into habit and all that. And here's the you can really see it in the locker room video that they posted here on X as they hand out the jackets post game. But I think it was Crosby wearing his OG junior jock or something, or shoulder pads. Guys just don't want to switch it up. And here's them giving Tanev the jacket. Look at this. He's got. There's no back. There's no back to this shirt. Look at
Does
this
that
shirt.
still even qualify as a shirt at this point?
So here he is for podcast listeners, getting the jacket and his shirt. There's no back. It's just sleeves and a chest. So I guess it's working for him. I don't know.
We may have to ask Brandon about this at some point over the next little bit. Is this what is the story with this shirt that is, and again, for podcast listeners, his entire back is exposed. I mean, it's almost like it's had the literal back cut out of it. So anyways, but Brandon Tanev back with the Winnipeg Jets, all over the place. Had a nice little debut there on Friday night. With the club, was in the lineup yesterday. Here's one more from Tanev. Just talked about finding out about the trade from Seattle back to where it all started in Winnipeg.
I spoke to my agent. He let me know everything was going, and then spoke to my GM in Seattle, Ron. But then I was able to speak to Chevy and Larry and the guys they were in Philly at the same hotel. So it was nice to say hi to them, and everything worked out very well.
What's it like to come back to the place the journey started?
Yeah, it's. I'm very happy. Like I said, I've been smiling all day. It's a group I know very well, a city I know well, and they've had great success this year. So I'm just trying to come in and do whatever I can. The team's playing some great hockey, so whatever the role I need to play or do is what I'm willing to do.
How different is this now than the first time around?
I mean, it's a little different. Obviously, I'm a little older, so it's a little bit of a different team, but it's a lot of the same guys. I know the trainers, the ownership group's the same, management. So it's one of those things where it's a little different, but at the same time, it's very similar.
So there's Brandon Tanev, who did get a couple games in with his new club and old club this weekend. Luke Schenn met the team today at the rink. Presumably will be in the lineup tomorrow. We'll look forward to having Schenn a little bit later on in today's show. Right, we're going to hear from Kevin Cheveldayoff in just a minute. Let me shout out our great partners over at Rolly's Transfer, their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Folks, if you have a move coming up this spring or summer, why don't you get the white glove treatment from Rolly's Transfer, family owned and operated for over 60 years here in Winnipeg and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Check out their website at rollys.com. Top right corner, you'll see the request an estimate feature. Click on that and pop in the promo code WST for a special discount for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners for moving services and moving supplies. And then let our friends at Rolly's know when you're planning on moving, where you need to move to, and what is being moved. And the experts will turn it around quick with a great quote for you and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that Rolly's is famous for, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. For your next move, make it Rolly's. Find out more. Request an estimate today over at rollys.com. Spring is here. Lots of spring cleaning happening around the city. Your place, your property. What about your mouth? If it's been a minute since you've been at the dentist, why don't you do a little spring cleaning of your own? And head on down or give a call to St. Vital Dental Center, Dr. Terry and his great staff at 167 St. Anne's. and put yourself in the mix for a spring cleaning of your teeth. Of course, St. Vital Dental has been doing it for decades in the neighborhood with the beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with free parking right behind the building. And an incredible group of dentists and staff willing to help you and your family with customers from 6 months all the way to 99 and above. Check them out online, stvitaldental.ca, for all of the services they offer, including finding out more on dental implants. But if you're looking for, if it's been a minute since you've been to the dentist, don't let it go any longer. Make that appointment for the spring cleaning and more. St. Vital Dental Center, stvitaldental.ca, and tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And a shout out to Donnie and the gang down at Manitoba Battery as well. You know, I look out my window here and see the skating trail shut down for the year, a little bit of melting coming on. It won't be long before we're leaning on Donnie for boats for motors, for batteries for boat motors and ATVs and so much more. Of course, you still got to make sure that car and truck is rolling. And if you do need a battery test to see where you're at, they'll be happy to do that for free at either Logan Avenue or their Dovercourt Drive locations. They've got a great sale on right now for AC Delco batteries. All sizes, only $149.50 with core exchange. The other thing that Manitoba Battery does better than anyone, you know, you'll be shopping local. You know, you'll be getting the best and lowest prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores. They've also got the best customer service around. Many of our listeners tell us that every time they go into Manitoba Battery, how great the experience is. You don't even have to show up there because they will deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. For all your battery needs, keep it local. Manitoba Battery waiting for you. Give them a call, pop by and see them, or order online at manitobabattery.com. All right, we're going to wrap the entire trade deadline with Dennis Bernstein in a minute, and then Mike McIntyre will have the latest from practice and the Jets moving forward. But let's hear what Kevin Cheveldayoff had to say, because he spoke very late from New Jersey after the dust settled on the deadline. Here's Chevy on the moves that they were able to complete before 2 p.m. on Friday.
Well, I think we, gave ourselves a little bit of a different dimension on the back end, from a hardness perspective, a penalty kill perspective, I think leadership perspective. I think we, really got a lot in acquiring, Luke. And then, Tanev, it's always good to bring a guy back home. And he was a big part of what we had going there when we went to deep into the playoffs and the experience that he had with this group. And he's just that much more experienced as a player now. Speed galore, tenacity, penalty killing, a guy that, it won't take long for him to be familiar back with, with all the players again. And that's a real added benefit.
Kevin Cheveldayoff on the acquisitions of Schenn and Tanev. One thing I will say, Remis, and I don't know whether you noticed this, it seemed like that trade deadline hit, and maybe it was adding Tanev in and kind of what we were focusing on and seeing the difference in the Jets, but both of those games had a real edge to them. And the increase in physicality was notable as opposed to many of the games the Jets have played this year. And I will say, I think this is pretty much a harbinger of things to come, and part of the reason why they wanted a Tanev and especially a Luke Schenn in the lineup.
Yeah, they wanted some guys who can throw their body around, who aren't afraid of getting in front of pucks. I think Luke Schenn, isn't he the all-time hit leader since they track that stat in the NHL? And Tanev, he's got speed, he's got familiarity with the players in the locker room. He said it was, for some players, the Jets jersey doesn't feel right to put on. For Tanev, it felt like an old pair of gloves putting on. So he felt very comfortable and knows a lot of people. And I certainly like bringing him in. We were wondering where he was going to play, slotting him for now on the fourth line there. And as you said, looking pretty good. They don't call him Turbo for nothing. Slamming his body, mixing it up. I thought it was great, and it just got me remembering my favorite Tanev moment with the Jets when he scored that hat trick against the Bruins.
The Boston hat trick, legendary, absolutely. Well, hopefully he's got some more legendary moments moving forward for the Jets throughout this season and into the playoffs. Listen, it was well documented. The Jets were going hard at Brock Nelson. That didn't happen. Here's what Chevy had to say on if they got everything done that they wanted to.
Well, I don't know that anybody around the league would say they got everything, done. I think you take what the market gives you. You do as much work as you can, and you see where the chips fall.
Scott Arniel said that he was kind of riding shotgun for a bit of the process, and he said that you guys were in on a lot of guys. Can you give us an idea of some of the? I don't know how you'll go into details.
It was a really interesting deadline, much different, I think, than a lot of other ones. There was, things that you thought were real, and then all of a sudden weren't real. There was lots of players that maybe were in play that then got pulled out. Usually, you see guys get added in, as the days go on, but. This was a unique, trade deadline in that respect. So, again, we were in on things that we felt we could be in on, and anything that was available to us, we took a good hard look at.
And when you talk about that good hard look you took, can you give us an idea of what prices were like? We just kept hearing that. And
you saw what the results were. I think again. There was varying different degrees. I think this deadline was a little bit different as well. More players, I think, with multi-year deals that were moved. I'd have to really dissect it. I guess I really haven't. But it seemed like there was lots of players in play, and then there was lots of players in play that didn't move, and for various different reasons. So again. Every organization, obviously has, different needs. Every trade deadline is different, and, just this one's in the books.
So there was what maybe didn't happen. Of course, the Brock Nelson acquisition that ended up being Colorado's was the hot topic around Winnipeg. Chevy was asked about the Brock Nelson situation and why they weren't able to get a deal done on the guy that ended up with the division rival.
Well, again, it's one of those things where, we were in it, from a perspective of, doing everything we possibly, could to look at all the different angles. And, when decisions are made that are out of your control, that's the way it is.
When you say that, we all want to know, was that with respect to playing in Winnipeg on his part?
Again, I'm not going to get into, anything, specific as far as, what the different situations were. But, again, we put a real strong, foot forward, and, that's where we are.
Outside of specifics, it sounds like you're saying in the end, there was not a deal there to be made. Is that the case?
I'm not going to get into specifics. It's obviously, the deals happen behind closed doors. They're going to stay behind closed doors.
All right, so there's Chevy on the Brock Nelson deal that was and obviously not able to be completed. He ended up in Colorado. Mikko Rantanen is now a Dallas Star. Here's what Chevy had to say about two big division rivals getting better at the deadline.
Yeah, again, it's, the deadline, gives different opportunities, for different teams. And those are obviously great players. And you focus what you do for your own organization. It's not an arms race. It's what, works for you and what fits for you. You can't, you're not able, no one's able to, truly try and go and get everybody and anything. Those teams did what they felt they needed to do. We felt what we needed to do.
All right. And of course, there is a balance between the desire of improving the team in that present moment. And then, of course, handling the inflated prices that were certainly part of a seller's market at the deadline. Here's what he had to say on that.
Well, prices really didn't factor into any of our decisions as far as acquiring or not acquiring players. Like that wasn't, that wasn't a factor. We weren't going in saying we weren't going to do this, we weren't going to do that, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. Like we were prepared and ready to do whatever it took to, if there was fits. But once there's not a fit, then, you have to, be judicious and try to do things that you do think help help your lineup.
You held on to your firsts this time around.
I tried like heck not to. No, again, every deadline's different, and sometimes, again, were there teams asking for firsts, even in situations that we got right now? Sure, if there's a pressure point that a team, can be buckled under, you're always asking.
All right, so this is all Kevin Cheveldayoff wrapping the trade deadline earlier on the weekend. As far as his own team, this is 3 Reem. Chevy talked about making his team harder to play against.
I think so. I think, again, part of, I think, our success as a group, is that team identity. It's one of those things where, up and down, side to side, we have depth, and we created a lot more there. We have again, more speed. I think that as you get into the playoffs, that's important. We have a hardness element that we didn't have before. We have a champion in the room that has experience, that will be a voice that I think will help our leadership group immensely.
All right, Kevin Cheveldayoff, and one more from Chevy on Luke Schenn, who we hope to have later on in the program after we talk to Mike. Here he is on bringing Schenn in, and of course the Stanley Cup experience that he brings to the room.
Well, again, I guess, we'll see. But, he's a player that is very coveted, I think, in that regard, and held in high regard around the league, for those things. And, he's a competitor. I think as a hockey player or as an athlete, you want a chance to compete, for a championship. And I really expect an exuberance from him, because, when you get a little longer in the career, you know that you don't have as many of those years left. So I think that urgency, that desire, he'll be able to talk to the guys and just say, you know what, guys, buckle down, because it's damn well worth it.
All right, so there is Kevin Cheveldayoff, general manager of the Winnipeg Jets, breaking down what didn't happen at the trade deadline. We'll talk more about this and today's happenings down at the rink with Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. He is there right now and is going to join us after we speak with Dennis Bernstein and get Dennis's takes on everything that did and didn't happen around the league at the trade deadline. Just before we do that, a big thanks to Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Synonymous with Winnipeg, Princess Auto was founded here in the PEG, headquartered here in the city, and now coast to coast across the country, but with 3 locations to serve Manitobans: Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and out in Brandon. For our friends in Westman, Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is waiting for you at Princess Auto. Pop by and shop in store today, or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Speaking of great Winnipeg companies, Wallace & Wallace has been the go-to folks for fencing and overhead doors in Winnipeg since 1946. If you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a phone call. They have all sorts of fence types, welded wire, chain link, wood, ornamental, you name it, they've got it. They're also the leaders in temporary fencing as well in Winnipeg. And if you need a new garage door, talk to Wallace & Wallace, because they've got the largest selection of overhead garage doors in town, which means ones to perfectly match your home and add value to it as well. Give them a phone call, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will be happy to come down and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them online at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lowson Crescent, just off of Kenniston. And hey, with spring just around the corner, you know what that means, gang? Graduations, wedding season. Guys, if you need to up your menswear game, head on down to F Apparel with custom suits beginning at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories in town. A great promo right now for Manitoba grads in 2025. where all graduates will receive a free shirt and tie with the purchase of a new suit. And of course, if you are in a wedding party, make sure to take advantage of that great wedding party discount when you and the fellas get your suits for the big day. You can find out more on all these great deals at 190 Smith Street or check them out online at EPHapparel.com for more information and to book yourself in for a fitting. All right, Mike McIntyre was at practice today. He'll join us a little later on. First up, though, before Mike, let's welcome in Dennis Bernstein of the fourth period to recap the deadline around the National Hockey League. DB, welcome back to Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
It's always great being on WST. Great to be with you, Hustler. Thanks for the time.
What a wild week it was last week. A lot of talk, some earlier deals, and then a trade deadline day that brought some big moves, some others that didn't quite happen. Were you left wanting more, or when you look back at last week from your perspective, is this going to be one of the more exciting trade deadline periods that we've had, considering it really started a month ago with the Rantanen deal Part A?
But it ran up to the last day. And I said this with Steve Koulis. I was hosting with him on Friday. I said, if you like steak, you can have an 18-ounce ribeye or a 10-ounce center cut filet. So what we got was a 10-ounce center cut filet because we didn't get 40 trades. We got 20, 21. These big-time trades on the last day, which also we haven't seen in a while. I think it was one of the best deadline days of all time. I think the activity was, we could have been wanting more overall, but what we saw on the last day, I think, was dramatic and shocking. And, the exclamation point was, Brad Marchand's wearing a Florida Panthers jersey now.
Yeah, that is. I mean, let's just quickly start on that. We've heard that, he had a face-to-face meeting with the hockey club, and they somehow couldn't get it done. I don't know, from being far removed from that situation and not knowing the organization well, with the player, he is synonymous with the Boston Bruins. Yeah. How did that not end with a handshake and a deal that kept Brad Marchand as a Bruin for life?
And the funny thing is, they always say, he can come back in the offseason. They never come back. Who goes back? Like Nick Bukestad went back, I think, once to Arizona or something like that. They never
Keith
come
Tkachuk,
back.
25 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so there's two. Nobody comes back, and he might find greener pastures. And not for nothing, when you look what they did to that team, that's not a one-year rebuild. We were waiting for the regression. And what did we say the last couple of years? They're going to regress. They're going to regress. The Bruins are going to regress. Well, guess what, Bruin fans? The day of regression's here. This is probably an 80-point team next year. So now Marchand's got to ask himself, if I sign a 2 or 3 year deal, am I ever going to get back to the playoffs? Yeah, it shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. It's stunning. And look, I get the conditional pick and whatever, but I don't know. This is who's your core now? Elias Lindholm, Hampus Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy. I guess it was something that there's been a lot of mismanagement. And I think it started with Hustler. Remember the press conference when Swayman was holding out and Seabass got up there, got 64 minutes. I think from that point on, it's been a bad season. It's really been tough for them. And there's not a ton of talent on the team. So it's kind of shocking. And that was that you think you were compelled to make that move. You could have kept them and you could have signed another deal too. So I get the asset management, but there's other things besides assets and expected goals and stuff like that. It's about the off-ice stuff. And you're starting to see that more and more, Hustler. You need character in the room. You need your team to have chemistry. And this disrupts the entire room. I don't know who's going to be the leader now because it's not a very vocal room. So that was a study move because you think you find, like you said, find a way to keep that guy. Get sent away everybody else. But I don't know.
Just from seeing the reaction of Boston fans online and social media and, some of the people that we know that are big Bruins fans, they're just gutted. They can handle the reality of the situation. They can't handle the heart and soul and the guys synonymous with the franchise not being there anymore. And for all of the teams to end up with the Florida Panthers, I think, rubbing them the wrong way. But you're right just about Boston. They're behind Montreal, Detroit, New York before getting to Ottawa and Columbus, and have played 2 more games than all those teams. So I think it's over for the Bruins.
And I think about destiny, though, Hustler. Go back 2 years. If Marchand pots that breakaway at the buzzer against the Florida Panthers, we have we're not here today. It's an entirely different reality. So go from that point against the Panthers, the fact that he he threw on a sweater on Saturday with a Panther sweater. I mean, look how destiny changes things for teams sometimes.
Dennis, let's focus in on the Central Division.
Sure.
I think it's fair to clarify the reaction here in Winnipeg is one of disappointment in that they were so clearly focused on getting Brock Nelson. Yeah. And not only did they not get Brock Nelson, but he went and bolstered one of their biggest rivals and hurdles in the Central Division. What can you tell us about the Brock Nelson sweepstakes, how he ended up in Colorado, and where that leaves the Jets?
Yeah, well, that's a nice haul for the Islanders. Like, they gave up a lot. They gave up that prospect who's going to be. They gave up a lot together. So that was a good hockey trade. It wasn't the Islanders selling. They got future assets for Brock Nelson. Yeah, look, I said it. I said, if the Jets got Brock Nelson, you know, I'd start planning a parade. Like, that was the one thing they needed. Now, I will say one thing, though. When people talk about reseeding and the 1 through 8, like, does it mean something that the Jets win the division to miss that first round matchup?
It means everything now.
Of course it does. Like, oh, reseed. No. Jeff says, don't reseed. No, we don't want to reseed. No, it's okay. Yeah, it's a very difficult division, right? And I feel bad for Jet fans. I feel worse for Minnesota Wild fans. They're going to be the 4th best team, right? They're going to be a walker. They're going to. It's what's the group of death, as they would say in soccer. It's also at these 3 teams. It's ridiculous. Like, it is. Like, you could pick one and you can make a case for every one of them. So yeah, look, what I'd like to see an upgrade from Nestlekoff. Yeah, and the organization said everything. The guy's done. It's one of the things where the guy's done nothing wrong, right? But you think you need a little better to win it all. I get it. They did it last year with Monahan. They want to do it again with Brock Nelson. So it's a loss, but. I don't know, Hustler. Like, I watched this team play. If they play to their potential, they can beat anybody with Nemestikov as the 2C. You would have liked Brock Nelson. I get it. He would have been a perfect fit. You got to get over it, move on. It's still a quality team. Could certainly come out of the West, but it makes the task a little harder in the division with the Colorado adding, and certainly with Dallas getting Rantanen.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned Minnesota right now. And I mean, assuming they are the wild card team coming out of the Central, if they're wild card 1, they might actually shift over to the Pacific. And I think looking at the top 3 teams in the Central, they might be more than happy to do exactly that, Dennis.
For sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Vegas probably went to the – but look, last night, they were terrible against the Kings. He got 6 goals against a team that can't score. I think scored 6 goals in the last 5 games or something like that. So, yeah, I think if you had a preference to play the number 1 team in the division, you'd either the Pacific or the Central, you would pick the Central. And certainly top to bottom, top 3, Central's better, no question. Edmonton's got holes. The Kings can't score. Maybe the 30. You know, Hustler, I'm here. I cover the team a lot. 30th ranked power play in the playoffs. That team win? We'll see.
You know, just while we're talking about Minnesota here and the rest of the Central Division, I mean, Minnesota, I think, listen, credit to them for hanging in. They've had brutal injuries. They've got this cap albatross. They're going to be a playoff team, although they seem to be coming back to the pack. They lost yesterday at home to the Pittsburgh Penguins. But we talk about the big 3, Winnipeg, Colorado, and Dallas. And obviously, we have this Winnipeg focus. Jets really wanted Brock Nelson. It didn't happen. He goes to Colorado. There is another side of this, though, is that Mikko Rantanen left the Avalanche, and he's now back in the division with Dallas. I mean, from the perspective of Colorado, what are they thinking about Rantanen ending up and signing an 8-year deal reportedly at less money than they offered him in the first place to be in the division with their rival?
Oh, you're a pissed if you're an Avalanche fan. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? But I don't know. You know, look, maybe it's at 12, but he's the highest paid player on that team. 12 in Colorado, you're the 3rd highest paid player on the team. So maybe there was a little bit of that as well, and getting shuttled around. And, you know, maybe he just wanted the sojourn to end, because for a player of that magnitude to go what he just went through, it's not unprecedented, but it's so rare. It's like Haley's Comet that comes around every 25 years. You don't see a player like that being flipped on the last day because you can't sign him. You just, you know, you bite down hard, you try to win a championship with them. So, yeah, I think you're scratching your head, but it's a tax-free state. Although I'll say this, there is a comparison. Now, it depends about your perspective, right? The difference is on the entire contract between Dallas and Colorado from him monetarily is $4 million or $500,000 a year, which you would say, that's not a lot, Hustler. That's a lot for me and you. And so it's a lot for anybody. So it's still a chunk of change there. But he's with a team that's going to win. He's with a GM, and I put Nil in category with Chevy and with Breezeball and all the really, really exceptional GMs. He knows he has a team that's in it. He knows he has a GM that's going to figure out something to keep this team competitive. It's a really nice place to live. I get it. He wanted a big city. That's part of the reason he's not in Carolina. So yeah, but if you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, you scratch your head like, why don't you just sign for 12 and let us know? And everybody would have went home happy.
Even the 12-6 that McKinnon makes. I mean,
yeah.
Well, you need to make more than McKinnon, who's clearly the number one guy on that team.
And you're going to have to pay McCarr 14 or 15 probably when he comes due. So he's going to be the third highest payer on the team. But
well, that's a
it was a surgeon because you figured why not go to free agency? Why not go back to Colorado with your bros? But he made the call. I guess he just wanted it to stop. Maybe just all this stuff, all this chatter. I think at some point in time, that's more money he'll ever need in his life. You sign the deal and you move on.
I'm not sure the chatter's stopping now that they're going to be playing the Avalanche 5-6 times a year and potentially once every good fall at some point in a playoff series to get out of the Central. Dennis Bernstein's with us. Moving from the Central to the Pacific, we saw huge swings by Colorado and Dallas. Obviously, the Jets wanted to be there. A lot quieter in the Pacific. The Vegas Golden Knights, pretty quiet. I mean, Edmonton get Wallman and Trent Frederick. And I guess maybe start off with the Kings. Were you left wanting a little bit more? Did you think the Kings would have been busier considering where they are?
Yeah. Look, I don't mind that move for Kuzmenko, but it should have been a secondary move, Hustler. There should have been another move on top of that. Teams got the 30th ranked power play. Kuzmenko's, and he's not even a shooter. I looked up, before he came to LA, he played 45 games. He shot 52 times. It's not what they needed. They needed a finisher. They needed to go get Raquel or Rust or convince Vancouver to trade Bezer, who I saw last night. They took the A off him. So if you think that guy's going to sign there, you're a little south of crazy maybe at this point. I think Kings needed a finisher. They didn't get one. But when I said that on Sunday night, they go into Vegas and score 6 goals. So, and it wasn't like Kuzmenko was involved in the goals, but I was a little surprised they didn't go get another winger. They're a winger short. This Kuzmenko guy will help. I'm not sure how much he's going to score, but the other, if you look at Vegas, I thought Vegas would add more at the wing because last time I checked, Tanner Pearson's still playing with Jack Eichel and Mark Stone, and I would think they would want an upgrade there. They couldn't find them. Maybe they tried for Schenn. Maybe St. Louis wants to hold on to him. So I'm kind of shocked. In Edmonton, I don't know. Edmonton got another offensive defenseman, and he laid out a big hit on Rantanen the other night. He looked really good, Jake Wallman. I don't know about their defense and goals. They're not as good as they were when they went to Game 7 against Florida right now. I'm sorry, they're not. They could get knocked out in the first round if they play LA. So it's going to be interesting. But you're right. I think it was more – I don't think it was reactionary, like from the Central GMs. I think maybe the GMs in the Pacific said, okay, there's no other big moves. We're all about in the same pack, so maybe I'll back off here. But, I was a little disappointed Rob Blake didn't add a goal score of substance because what that team really needed.
Dennis, let's move over to the East. And the Atlantic Division has been shaping up kind of similar to the Central right now, a real 3-horse race with 3 elite teams. The Leafs, the Panthers, and the Lightning, all of them made significant moves. Who do you think did the best? And as we look to this, period going into the playoffs, who set them up for postseason success the best out of the Leafs, Panthers, or Lightning, in your opinion?
Well, if you follow the Julian Breezeball model, he went out and bolstered his third line. The last time they did that, they won a championship, right? And I get it. Let's talk about that trade. The 2 third-round picks are never 5% chance either one of them gets in the league. The first round, is it one of the first round picks in 2029? It's brilliant. I mean, it's great. You know what? There's always another draft pick. There's always another prospect. They trade away assets. Guess what? Unless they stop the draft at 2029, he's going to have more draft picks. He's going to trade them away. He's going to keep winning. So I think the way Tampa's playing right now, because everybody had this division, Toronto and Florida. Everybody had it. And people were talking about, maybe Tampa wild card. And then they went 9 out of 10. Here's the thing. Don't doubt Julian Breezeball. Certainly don't doubt John Cooper with respect to how his team plays or any team he coaches plays. So I like this team right now because they're under the radar. I think they have the 3rd best goal differential in the league right now. Like now, Hedman injury, might factor in a little bit, but I think there's some – look, I get it. I get what Florida did with Seth Jones, and I get the nice, more cosmetic thing with Marchand because he's probably going to play in the 3rd line. So I like that. The Leafs bolstered, but do I think the Leafs are going to win 2 rounds? No. I really like Tampa. I think Tampa can get all the way out. As Washington's playing as good as Washington's playing, if they're elite players, play elite. If Vasilevsky is back to his form, which he is right now, if Hedman's healthy, Kucherov point, I just like their depth, and depth always wins in the playoffs. Not to say that Florida's in deep, because they could certainly get out. But I just really like Tampa. I just like the way they operate, and I certainly like coming off the Four Nations. Not that John Cooper needed the affirmation. It shows you how great of a coach he is.
What a carrot for finishing first in that division. It's very similar to the Central,
sir.
Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it
matters.
You finish first, you're getting, like, as of right now, either Columbus or Ottawa. If you don't, it's that 2-3 series with two of the Panthers, Lightning, or Toronto Maple Leafs. And much like Dallas and Winnipeg and Colorado, there's going to be a very good team that legitimately could win the Cup that is out in the first 2 weeks of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, it's hard to make the playoffs. Imagine Hustler, first round Tampa Bay Columbus again from 5 years ago, or from 19 or whatever it was when they knocked them out. So yeah, there is a reward for finishing first. There is. Like people, let's reseed. No, like this is the perfect proof of it. And so if you go back seasons and you would recast the way the teams finishes 1 through 8, a lot of matchups would have been the same anyway, because they all have about the same point percentages. Yeah. So that's the one thing. If you go cross division, they're still about the same. So you can wind up with the same matchup. So, but yeah, I think this year you're right. And that's a good incentive. It says this system still works. We don't really need to do the reseeding, although I get the argument for it.
Were you surprised that Washington, who's had this monster season, top of the East all year, wasn't more active?
No. There's a lot of belief in that town right now, and they got Beauvillier to help a little bit on the middle six. So no, what move would they make? And plus, here's the thing: I said it before. There's something called chemistry. Like, do you really want to bring it? Like, would they bring in a big time player? But no, they don't really need it. Now, do I think they're going to win 4 rounds? I don't know, Hustler. I don't know. They're going to be in virgin territory when they get to the postseason. I mean, I know Ovi's been there. A couple of guys been in the playoffs. But this group, sometimes it's a situation where, like Boston or Tampa before them, you got to lose before you win. And that's my concern. So, no, I'm not so, because when I look at the pieces, they all fit together so well. There's been no significant injuries. Ovi's back now. I think they did the right thing. I think Patrick did the right thing out there and stayed with his team. And so if there's a gap in the playoffs, Hustler, and there's an area where you were deficient, I think they would go address that in the offseason. But I think it's more about the chemistry than adding any talent, because I think there's enough talent to win a couple of rounds. I'm not sure it's a 4-round team at this point.
I have to ask you about something that didn't happen, and that was any deal between the Hurricanes and the Maple Leafs. Dave and all the gang in TO now have something to talk about for a while, and I go to the 4th period, and I see a full-screen picture of old Mitch Marner, who actually looked pretty good on Saturday night with a couple goals. What do you make of the discussions between those two teams? I'm sure there was discussions between plenty of teams. The fact that it's public and out there, there's already been so much noise about the future of Mitch Marner and his entire time and what he did the last time he was going to get a contract and how that worked out. What's your take on what's left moving forward for the Leafs and the big question of Mitch Marner's future?
Well, the reality is 99% of the team players get talked about and 1% get traded. It's as simple as that. So there's conversations about everybody and everything. I'm sure that the Kings had a conversation about Rantanen, about Marchand, whatever, right? So I think he's gone. I think he's going to leave. He's going to take top dollar. I think Chicago's a perfect fit for him. You can go play, and I get it, like they stink right now, but playing with Connor Bedard for the next 8 years wouldn't be a bad thing, right? He's used to playing with high elite talent. Right, he has a chance to. He never really established a legacy in Toronto. What's the legacy of? Win around, maybe win around, get knocked out early, be disappointing all the fans. He has a chance, like if he went to Chicago, to rebuild the legacy of a championship team. Like, do they ever get there? I don't know. I don't call if Davidson's the right guy, but I think his time in Toronto is coming to an end. Right, and I don't think this helps. Right, I get it. Like they would have traded for a tremendous player for Mitch Marner. But, if this is the team you love and wanted to stay and now they wanted to trade you, maybe there's some feelings. And I think at this point in time, first of all, I think it's good business for Mitch Marner to get out there and look at the marketplace, like without question, right? Because he's, the one thing he'll lose is that 1 year. He'll get 8 if he stayed in Toronto, but I just don't see it. I don't see him being the third fiddle here. I don't see him staying in Toronto. I think he's going to find greener pastures and find a better situation where, maybe he can plant a flag and build a legacy, which he hasn't been able to do in Toronto really, other than, scoring a lot of points and getting paid a lot.
Hey, speaking of players that did not move but will have some big decisions to make in the offseason, I don't think anyone expected Sam Bennett to move out of Florida, but I'm interested, Dennis, in just how much interest he will have around the league as a UFA, and considering the Seth Jones now being on the books, albeit with it going up, what are the chances that Sam Bennett is in a different jersey next season?
I think it's a pretty good chance, because I think this is the one team that's deep enough, and Bill Zito always seems to find a replacement, right? And remember, Sam Reinhart was never a 50-goal scorer in Buffalo, right? He found Carter Verhaeghe. Carter Verhaeghe found 40 goals one year. I'm sure he has, and he will have out. But here's the thing: would you pay $7 to $8 million for Sam Bennett? Right? I maybe the cap going up.
I might.
You might.
I'd love to have that guy on my team. Not gonna lie.
I know. And you know what? 2 years from now, but the cap is 110 or whatever it's going to be. You can fit an $8 million player in a lot easier than now. It's looking like maybe a $5.5-6 million player. He'll have interest. That's a lot of money for Sam Bennett. It is. He's not Sam Reinhart. Don't convince if your GM thinking about it, it's the same player. That's not. It's a very different player. It's a less productive player. But here's the thing, Pastor, to your point, it's a player you win with. And how do you put a value on that? So you might put maybe $6 million on his talent and $2 million on his intangibles, and you get an $8 million player. So he'll have interest. If he does leave, I'm sure he'll sign for big money somewhere. I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's worth that kind. If he's going to $8 million, then the GMs know something that we don't.
Hey, Dennis, before we go, was there a player or two that you were surprised that didn't get moved?
Yeah, Rickard Rakell. They would have got a first and a prospect, maybe a little bit, maybe a third asset for Rakell. He's had a great season, 28 goals, and they're going down with the ship now. So they're not going to trade one of the big three. All this romanticized about Sid going to Colorado, stop. Please, it's not going to happen. He's going to eventually own the team, part of the team, like Mario did, and there'll be a statue out front. So I think Rickard Rakell was me to try, and I think Brock Besser. And last night they took the A off him. They gave it to Marcus Paterson, who's been there like 40 games or something like that. So that was surprising as well, because that team, it's top down dysfunctional. They're never winning a Stanley Cup, Hustler. It's just. They had to evaluate Brock Besser before they wanted to offer him something. Evaluate what? He's been there his whole career, right? And look, I'm biased. I know the kid. I think he's going to be a star wherever he goes. So I think those are the two, Rakell and Besser, because of where those teams sat and the reality of where they sit in the standings. I would have moved play on from those players. One has term, so we got a nice return. But, Vancouver's going down pretty fast.
You mentioned Vancouver, and I mean, that entire organization season has been one soap opera after another.
Yeah.
It was pointed out to me last week that Rick Tocchet doesn't have a contract for next year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you think Tocchet, like knowing what we know of Rick, I would imagine he must be incensed at just what he's dealt with this year. Do you think he even wants to come back? I would imagine they'll be interested in him from one of the other 31 teams if he wants to be coaching.
If body language and facial expressions tell the story, then he won't coach there next year.
Yeah,
maybe he goes
that's
back
my
to
read
TNT.
too.
Yeah, maybe he goes back to PNT. Maybe he's like, I had enough with coaching already. I won, whatever. Or he could wind up as a free agent and get a very well paid contract, right? But there's also certain type of players that have to play for him too, because that was the rap him coming out of Arizona. The defensive style is too much. So has he changed that much since he went to Vancouver? I don't think so. Was he party to any of this disruption with Paterson and Miller? Maybe, I don't know, but the organization's dysfunctional, so I don't know if I can lay it on Rick Tocchet, but I think there's a pretty good chance that he's not coaching there next year, because why wouldn't you give an extension? I thought he did a really good job. Not so much this year, but you had so many dramas and injuries, and with Quinn Hughes getting hurt now, it's I would think twice. That's a tough organization to work for. I'll put it that way. So I wouldn't be shocked if he was in another location next year.
Hey, did you hear anything about Elias Pettersson? Was that something that if it's going to happen, probably in the off season, but before the July 1 trade kicker kicks in?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's when it would happen, right? I think they have to reassess a lot of things, and I still think they traded the wrong guy. He was Brock Besser's. Like, you see Brock Besser not scoring. Why? Oh, JT Miller's gone. You needed both those players in the lineup. They couldn't settle their differences, but yeah, I think they'll look. I think you got to look this team. I think you got to look at every option, including trading that player. And if they do get to the postseason and they go out in 5 and he gets one assist in 5 games off of last year's playoff, then what do you do? right? So, yeah, I think you look at it hard, and you think got to look at every options because this team is now stuck in the middle, Hustler. They're not that bad. They're not 59-point team, but they're not a contender. So what does that mean? That means you're destined for years of mediocrity. And so maybe you do need a big move. But who knows with this organization? I mean, they're so dysfunctional. They might trade this player and not get the return they need. It's going to be interesting to see.
Dennis, always great having you on the program. I hope you and Dave and everyone that have been going crazy for a week heading into the deadline got a chance to turn the phone off for a couple hours at least on the weekend. But we're back at it heading to the postseason. Cannot wait.
Home stretch, brother. It's always great being on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable.
That's fine.
1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Yeah, don't forget the 20th, a week Thursday. Edmonton Oilers, Winnipeg Jets. We're going to be down at BP Garden City with a WST watch party with Little Brown Jug and Boston Pizza. Make a point to join us that day. Looking forward to it. Speaking of BP, popped into BP a couple times on the weekend. Great new February menu as well. Check that out. The pull-apart garlic cheese bread. Highly recommended. Was a great addition to the menu. Of course, no Jets tonight, but they're back at it tomorrow at home against the New York Rangers, and then Friday, that big game against the Dallas Stars. But whether you're keeping tabs on the Avalanche and Stars and the other teams when the Jets are off, or just looking for the best in sports bars to get together with your gang, Boston Pizza is the place to do it. And hey, if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. Shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Man, baseball season just about here. All the new gear coming in from the majors and the Toronto Blue Jays. And of course, with spring just around the corner, that means playoffs. That means to get your whites ready. And now that the trade deadline is passed, you can pretty much know what the team is looking like. So if you need to grab a new jersey, you can go down and do that, customized with your favorite player's name and number. Royal Sports has it all, the biggest sports superstore around, with the best in fan gear and the best for players as well, with their award-winning hockey department. Family owned for 50 years. Royal Sports is the spot. Make sure to check out all that cool stuff they've got on the King's Skate, Snow and Surf side as well. Royal Sports is at 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, Mike McIntyre is going to join us right now, and we're going to dive into this, but let me hit you with the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray as we welcome Mike McIntyre. And that is simply this: post-trade deadline with Luke Schenn now in tow, who will be in the top six. What is your preferred third pairing, assuming that Luke Schenn is on the right side of that pairing? Let us know in the chat right now for the why not question of the day. We'll get to your answers on this question a little bit later on. Let's welcome in Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Now, Mike, what's going on? How was the weekend?
Great weekend, Huss. Coming to you down here from the Matt Frost Media Center, where the Jets held an optional skate today for those of you who like to take attendance. I counted 11 players on the ice this morning. Well, not this morning. It started at noon. Of course, the Jets just got off the plane in the wee hours from Raleigh after that long road trip. But there were 10 skaters. Eric Comrie was the only goalie on the ice. But a couple noteworthy skaters. In terms of guys that played in the game yesterday, Nikolai Ehlers was out here. Cole Perfetti was out here. Morgan Barron and Colin Miller, and Logan Stanley. Those were the 5 that were in the lineup last night. Then you had the scratches like Hayden Fleury, Billy Heinola, David Gustafson, Rasmus Kapari, who is in concussion protocol, but certainly getting close to a return. He was out in a regular jersey, so that's a good sign for his potential return. And then, of course, you had the new guy. No, not Grant Klitzum, not that new guy. You had Luke Schenn out here, and he stayed out. He put in a marathon session. He was the last guy off the ice long after some of his teammates had left. And then we had a lengthy chat with him as well. He comes as advertised, Huss. You heard all people talk about his character. He is a character and has a lot of that. It comes across in his interviews. He's on, I believe this is his 10th NHL stop, if you include the Pittsburgh Penguins from last week. I actually I asked him if there's going to be a tribute video next time he plays the Penguins. And let's just say he did not seem to think all that fondly of his very brief time in Pittsburgh. He said he literally never spoke to anybody, never met any of his teammates. He was just kind of kept on the outside because the idea was they were going to turn around and flip him after getting him from Nashville. But yeah, he's a seasoned pro, seasoned with the media. And a fun little tidbit, Mark Scheifele picked him up at the airport in the wee hours. This would have been, I guess, right after the Jets must have landed. Schenn got in as well. And Mark Scheifele is playing the role of Billet family. Luke Schenn said that he hopes he has a good per diem because Mark Scheifele is actually hosting both Luke Schenn and Brandon Tanev at his house right now. So these guys don't have to stay in a hotel. So 3 is company, I guess, for Mark Scheifele and his 2 newest teammates.
Does he still have those goats running around that place? Did that come up about their where they're staying?
Did not ask about the goats, but that would be. I mean, can you imagine? Like that would be the ultimate reality show to like get some cameras
or an
in there.
SNL skit.
Totally. You got the new arrivals, the goats. Maybe throw in some chickens while you're at it. Yeah, didn't hear about the goats. I don't know if Mark Scheifele. I assume they're. I don't know that the goats are actually living in his house. I think he's got them at probably a more goat-friendly location. But I can look into that further, Huss. I'll put on my investigative reporter hat and try and get to the bottom of the goat situation.
So we're going to get a chance to see Luke Schenn tomorrow.
Yes.
We saw Brandon Tanev a couple times on the weekend. And I have to say, I mean, my conversations with friends from Friday night through yesterday, at least before the Carolina game, was almost exclusively about the return of the Tanev psycho eyes and
crazy eyes. Yeah,
I heard so many people say, and I was one of them, I forgot how much fun it was to have Brandon Tanev on your team. I mean, he brings something to the table that the Jets simply didn't have, and you cannot miss that guy out there. But he hasn't lost any of his energy since going to Seattle.
No, he is not, and he does have an infectious energy for sure. That you talk about a guy that maybe drags some teammates into the battle, into the fight. You saw it in that scrum on Friday night in Philly, where he just looked like an absolute lunatic, and we've seen that look from him before on the ice. Heck, Huss, we see it in his team photos, where it's
every year.
It's become a thing for sure. And yeah, I mean, it didn't take him long to kind of remind folks, I think, the energy that he brings and certainly that bottom 6. And, the Jets clearly excited to have him back with the team. And now we'll see what Luke Schenn, as you mentioned, he will be in the lineup tomorrow. There is no question about that. The one mystery that we did not get to the bottom of today is who his defense partner will be. There was no line because it was an optional skate today. There were no line rushes or anything like that. So there's nothing to be read out of today's optional skate. we'll obviously get the sense at the morning skate on Tuesday to see who he's with. I can tell you this. I asked Scott Arniel if there was any consideration that Luke Schenn could potentially move over to the left side. And I asked that question specifically because of Logan Stanley. Could Luke Schenn move to the left? Scott Arniel said that's not something he's even thought about. He said, I don't know that Luke Schenn's played much on the left side before. Pretty safe to say he will be in on the right side tomorrow, which brings us to the ultimate question is who's going to be on the left beside him? Will it be Logan Stanley, who had a very rough day/evening at the office in Raleigh? Could Colin Miller slide over to play the left? Would it be Hayden Fleury or Ville Heinola, who are left shot D and have been healthy scratches? And I don't know the answer to that. Scott Arniel said that he's not 100% sure yet of what he's going to do, so he wouldn't tip his hand. Let me offer my 2 cents. I would have Hayden Fleury in there tomorrow with Luke Schenn. I would not have Logan Stanley there. And, not only because of the tough game that Logan Stanley is coming off of, I just seriously question the lack of foot speed and mobility that a Stanley and Schenn pairing would have. And to me, that's where a guy like Hayden Fleury might be a really nice style fit with, or Ville Heinola too. I mean, they're mobile. And, Luke Schenn is probably going to do a lot of really good things for the Jets, but his foot speed is not one of them. And so I think you almost need to have him, especially as he gets acclimatized here. You'd want a partner that's a little more mobile. So I don't know that Logan Stanley has not been a healthy scratch at all this season. So are they will the first come tomorrow? I wouldn't hold my breath. But it is interesting to see things like Logan Stanley's not really even killing penalties anymore. They got Josh Morrissey doing that, taking some penalty killing time. And Scott Arniel talked about that today, saying they want more speed on the penalty kill. So if Logan Stanley's now not even killing penalties for you, and now you're going to have Luke Schenn, who's definitely going to be killing penalties. I don't know. I mean, the time would seem to be now. But again, there's been other times this season where I think we would all agree that Logan Stanley probably could have been sat down, and he hasn't. So is the time now? We'll have to wait and see what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, I mean, that's a conversation that I don't think is ending anytime soon around these parts, Mike. And, there obviously are some things that Logan Stanley brings to the table that other players in that room don't have. And that is a big part of why that he's been in. But to your point, Luke Schenn brings a lot of those same those same things. Now, do they just want more of it and feel they need to have both of those guys in? I'm sure there will be opponents this year before the end of the season where they do feel that way. But do those guys both in and both playing potentially together give yourselves the best chance to win? And listen, this last week, I think, is a perfect example of the good and the bad of Logan Stanley. I mean, listen, a week ago, we stepped up. I got a lot of respect for him. I mean, he threw down with Delorier here from Philly, who's probably a top 3 tough guy in the league.
Yep.
And hung in there with him. Not a lot of guys are willing to do that. And, I think they feel that they need to do that. Luke Schenn probably is one of those guys that will be able to take care of most comers. But on the other side, I mean, I go back to the last 2 games that they lost. Like in the Islander game, you're in a tight game in the third period, got the puck behind the net, poor puck management, bang, bang, it's on the Islanders' stick and it's in the back of your net. And then, I mean, last night, you look at the 2 5-on-5 goals. Yeah. Tough video session, shall we say, for Big Stan. And you wonder, I mean, it's not like these guys do not see this. They are very aware of the shortcomings of Logan Stanley, but up until this point, the benefits, in their opinion, has kept him in the lineup. The big question is, does Luke Schenn's arrival change that for the Winnipeg Jets? And I guess we'll find out the first answer tomorrow, whether he's in or not.
Yeah, that Scott Arniel said something else that I found really interesting about Luke Schenn today, Huss. Like, I think we all assume they brought him in and he's going to be on the third pair. And I suspect that's where he starts tomorrow. Don't completely rule out Luke Schenn moving up this lineup if they really like what they see. And that's not me just speculating. Scott Arniel himself, he mentioned when Luke Schenn was in Toronto, how he was playing with Morgan Riley. And then Scott Arniel then said, I'm not saying that Luke Schenn's going to jump in and play with Josh Morrissey, but I found it interesting that he brought that up because he also didn't say that wouldn't happen.
Well, Mike, to be honest, and just to quickly interrupt, I mean, when we were talking about this on our extended show on Friday, I kind of cited that and said, don't be surprised if we see what Luke Schenn looks like with Josh Morrissey. I mean, he certainly would be a yin to the yang of Josh Morrissey. One of the shortcomings of Dylan DeMello is he's not really that physical of a player. Sometimes there's some things that happen in front of the net when those two guys are out together that you might like a little more attention to. And here's the other thing, especially if Logan Stanley is staying in the lineup. Dylan DeMello consistently is a bit of a blanket for the players that he's playing with. He makes them more effective. He makes their underlying numbers better. He does all of that. If Luke Schenn was a fit with Josh Morrissey and added a little bit more toughness and helped Josh out in some of those other areas, I would argue that a Dylan DeMello-Logan Stanley pairing, if Stanley is in your lineup, might give yourselves a better chance to not, be dealing with a few of the things that have been seen in these last couple of games that I just outlined with when Stan is out on the ice. I mean, it's certainly something I think for the coaching staff to consider. How soon we might see what Schenn would look with Morrissey and whether that's a fit, I guess I'm not sure.
Yeah, and the fact Scott Arniel brought it up like sort of unprovoked today and specifically mentioned that makes me think that that's at least in the back of his mind. And I took it from him today as him saying that's not where we're going to throw him right off the hop. But that's not out of the question. And part of what the Jets will use these last 17, I guess now, regular season games is to find out stylistically what they might be able to do on the back end and how to best, put their pieces together so that when they hit the playoffs, they've got the optimized lineup. And, I also wonder if we see Brandon Tanev, like obviously he's on the fourth line right now. Could we potentially see like a reunion with Adam Lowry at some point? Maybe Tanev moves up. I think we'll probably see some mixing and matching and some experimentation when it comes to both new guys, and that it's not just completely etched in stone.
Well, and here's another possibility, playing off of Luke Schenn potentially playing with Morrissey at a time, and maybe this is more for playoffs. Josh Morrissey plays with either Dylan DeMello or Luke Schenn. And then Josh Morrissey goes out and plays a number of shifts with that other guy. And you've got a sixth defenseman that plays 6 to 7 minutes a night, and Josh Morrissey's pushing 28 or 29.
Correct. For sure. You could, especially, as you get late in the game, if it's a tight game, you almost just go down to 5D and Josh Morrissey's like double shifting. We know he's capable of it. What was it, a week or so ago? He played like over 8 minutes of the last 12 and that was days removed from puking his guts out at the Four Nations. So he's got the stamina for sure. And I expect tomorrow we'll see Schenn on the third pair as they try and ease him in. But I think we probably will see a look with a Josh Morrissey at some point, just to see what that potentially looks like. And in some ways, we talk about Schenn's lack of foot speed. Josh Morrissey might be a great partner for him. In we know what Josh Morrissey can do with his speed and getting up the ice. And like you say, that physicality, the net front stuff, teams that might want to try and exploit that a little bit against the Jets. I mean, if Schenn is out there, and Scott Arniel said today, like, Luke Schenn is the kind of player. He said there are players in the league, when you have them on your team, like a Schenn, there will be players that are hesitant to go to the front of the net strictly because of what they know they're going to face when they get there. And Luke Schenn is a deterrent in that sense. And that, I don't think that's something the Jets have. Forget about I don't think. I know that's something the Jets have not had. The Jets and Logan Stanley, despite his 6'7" frame, players are not afraid to go to the net on Logan Stanley because they're worried that it's going to hurt.
It's the opposite. Their eyes get big.
Correct. They know they can potentially exploit that. So the Jets now have that kind of weapon. And yeah, it would be interesting to see if you took that and paired it with your most offensive defenseman, a guy that at times is like a rover out there, is like a fourth forward. Maybe it would be a match made in hockey heaven. And so again, Scott Arniel said that he recalls Schenn being a great fit with Morgan Riley in Toronto, and that's not that long ago. Yeah, he's a little older and maybe a little slower than he was back in his Leafs days, but I thought it was a very interesting and potentially revealing bit of info. Just one other nugget out of the skate today, Huss, that I know a lot of people were maybe waiting to hear about. Vlad Domestikov, it would appear, is just fine. He obviously left the game yesterday in Raleigh, took that really hard high hit to the head area from Jordan Staal that I think the Jets felt should have been more than 2 minutes for interference. He was in or pulled by the spotter for concussion protocol. But it sounds like the Jets dodged a bullet there and that he doesn't have a concussion. At least that's the belief. And that it's more of an issue with his nose. I think we all saw the close-up on the bench. Like he was glowing like Rudolph. That was one bright red nose after he took the hit. And that he's feeling good today. And the expectation is, as long as there's no setback, that he would be in the lineup tomorrow. And that's important. I mean, here we are coming out of the trade deadline. We know the Jets tried to upgrade at 2C. They did not. And can you imagine if, like, hours later, the guy that they were trying to upgrade over was lost? And so it appears that for now they've dodged a bullet there when it comes to Vlad Domestikov.
Well, and listen, Mike, I mean, late Friday, once the deadline had passed and Ken came on and said, there's nothing more coming.
Yeah.
I mean, as disappointing as it was not to have Brock Nelson in the mix, exponentially worse that he went to Colorado. The question that they didn't add anybody else, if nothing more than a depth add, because what if one of those top two centers gets hurt? God forbid Mark Scheifele, but even Vlad Domestikov. I mean, there's a real trickle down. You're either moving Adam Lowry up and it changes everything about that third line, or, I mean, you're putting a bunch of guys that normally would never, ever be in a top six in a position where they're in charge of working with Perfetti and Ehlers and need to generate that sort of offense. And that was a big, that still is a big question for this team moving forward.
Or you're hoping that Brad Lambert could come up from the Moose. And I mean, they had him in that spot briefly earlier this year, a 4-game look. I wouldn't say it went poorly, but it also didn't go great. Because if you recall, they then sent Lambert back down and they swapped him out with Nikita Chibrikov. Different player, different role. But I think the Chibrikov call-up probably went a little bit better than the Lambert one. But yeah, I mean, like
he's got 4 goals in 46 games this year.
Yeah, and I know the Moose are having a tough. He's got a lot. He's certainly got assists, but the scoring has not been there. It's been a big step back this year when it comes to scoring. Now, again, there's a lot of Moose players really squeezing their sticks. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, he's not tearing up the AHL in the way that you would hope. And so, I mean, I got to think at some point, especially with the way the deadline went or didn't go, Brad Lambert is, in case of emergency, break glass. But again, is that Like, what are you getting there? And I'm sure the Jets hope they don't have to find out. But for now, at least, if Vlad Namestnikov is okay, Rasmus Kupari as well was in a regular sweater today. He's very close to a return as well. Now, how he factors in, it'll be interesting to see. I've actually liked Morgan Barron as the fourth line center. Brandon Tanev knocked David Gustafsson out of the lineup. And then Rasmus Kupari's been out of the lineup. So I'm curious to see, once Kupari is healthy, and that could be as early as tomorrow, where does he slot in? Like, how do they work that fourth line?
Does he slot in? I mean, that's my question.
Exactly. And I know, they like his right-handedness, some of the work he does on the penalty kill. But Morgan Barron, like, obviously he's got the size, like he gives a little more beef up as a centerman. And I think he's had a couple nice games in that role. I've actually really liked how that fourth line of Barron, Iafallo, and Tanev has looked. So, we'll see how it shakes out. But the Jets certainly, and the other thing notable after the game yesterday in Raleigh, Kenny, who was in Raleigh, he reported seeing Neil Pionk with a noticeable limp that was sort of pronounced. Now, Neil Pionk, like, it's not unusual for players to be banged up a little bit after a tough game. I asked Scott Arniel today if Neil Pionk is okay, and he said, so far, so good. He said they got a number of players who a day after a game are a little sore, and he said, we'll see how everyone feels when they wake up tomorrow. But again, the Jets, in Luke Schenn was obviously an ad on the blue line, but the Jets did not add like a top four, at least in our eyes. Now, maybe they use Luke Schenn in that role, but a more bigger name, impact type defenseman. And again, so you talk about another close call. You've got Namestnikov leaving the game yesterday at 2C. You've got Neil Pionk in some distress after the game. I'm sure there's a lot of fingers crossed in Jets land these days that everybody can stay relatively healthy here.
Mike, we mentioned Tanev and Schenn. Obviously, there was the Nelson disappointment. You've heard from Scott Arniel, and you heard from Kevin Cheveldayoff. How do you read what did and didn't happen for the Winnipeg Jets, and how they're feeling about the deadline and everything that led up to it?
Well, I found Kevin Cheveldayoff's comments really interesting on Friday, just before the game against the Flyers, where he said that he tried to move his first round pick. Like, he was pretty candid to say that. Like, so he wasn't shying away from the idea that they tried to do more than what they ultimately did. He also said, and I take him at his word, that what didn't happen was not a result of the Jets not willing to pay a price that was asked. So it's not like the Jets cheaped out here, and that they weren't willing to pay what it would have taken to get a player. For whatever reason, it would appear the Jets either got outbid, like whatever Winnipeg's best offer was, and to take Kevin Cheveldayoff at his word, they were willing to pay a premium. Whatever that wasn't good enough. And so looking at the Nelson case specifically, like Callum Ritchie, who is the prospect that the Avalanche sent to the Islanders, like, he is higher on a lot of prospect charts than even a Braden Yeager and certainly a Brad Lambert. And so I don't know for a fact if the Jets were willing to include Braden Yeager in a trade for Brock Nelson. I would tend to lean to no on that. I think Brad Lambert would have been on the table. I'm not so sure about Yeager. But based on everything we heard after the fact, I don't know that even Yeager would have got that deal done. Like, it just may be a case that the Avalanche and the prospect they were willing to include was more enticing to the Islanders. I also don't think, Huss, that this was a case of Brock Nelson blocking a trade to Winnipeg. I truly believe Brock Nelson was willing to come to the Jets. Now, once he heard that the Avalanche were in the discussion, and certainly with what the Avalanche offered to the Islanders was, I think it became moot. Like Winnipeg, they took their swing on him, and the swing that the Avalanche made for various reasons was just a little bit bigger. And I think that was a big disappointment for the Jets, no question. As you mentioned, it doubly stings because not only did they not get him, but he went to a team that there's a good chance they could be facing them in the playoffs. And I think it kind of reinforced a bit of the narrative out there, unfortunately, about Winnipeg, that this can be a tough place to get players to come to. But I don't think this is a case where the Jets weren't willing to think big enough, and as a result, they lost out. I just think their big enough wasn't going to be enough in this particular case. Now, we can debate whether they should have pivoted, and I think they tried. I mean, Nelson went down late Thursday night, right? So there was still plenty of time before Friday's deadline. And I don't have an answer for you as to why they couldn't have done something else. And I personally think they should have found a way to just get another player in here, certainly a forward, and for nothing more than just protection and insurance against things like Vlad Nemestikov getting injured. And I think, it was a bit of a disappointment that they didn't do it, and frankly, a bit of a surprise. But again, to hear Kevin Cheveldayoff say it, and I have no reason to believe that he's not being truthful, the Jets were willing to send potentially top prospects, certainly a first-round pick. We know it was a seller's market. Why weren't the Jets able to find a seller willing to accept what the high price that they were willing to pay? I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, there was a few players that we thought would be moved. I mean, Donato in Chicago is a perfect example that ended up not going anywhere. And maybe it was a matter of, they stuck with prices that just were seen as far too inflationary for some of the other teams. But it was interesting to see guys that were UFAs that ended up not being moved.
Let me sorry, just to jump in on that. Yeah. Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Like we've heard Patrick Alvin say that he was willing to move Brock Besser for a first-round pick, and he says he never got offered a. He said if you heard what I was being offered, you'd be surprised. I mean, we can debate, I suppose. So at 5-3 or 5-2, whenever the deadline was. Like, should the Jets have pivoted and used the first rounder that they were willing to include for a Brock Nelson? Like, should they have called up the Canucks and said, okay, we'll give you a first for Besser? I mean, I would argue that at that point, like the music was about to stop. You were going to be left without a chair. At that point, that's a move that I would have liked to, like, regardless of whether you're signing.
But he's not a center.
He's not. But again, it's just an extra forward. It's an extra potential impact forward that would give another team another guy they have to worry about how they're going to handle him in the playoffs. I love the Jets team that they have. Clearly, they're the number one team in the league. But I just think the trade deadline was also about addressing what if scenarios going forward. If you're gonna be around for 4 rounds and try and grind out 16 wins between April and June, I think the more weapons you have, or the more tools in your equipment box, the better. And should the Jets have done more to find another tool? I think we would probably say yes. But again, at the end of the day, it didn't get done.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't disagree with that, but I can tell you that, we were live all day and they said, the Jets went and got Brock Besser. I would still be saying, well, what about the center position? And what happens if Vlad goes down? Or what happens if Scheifele and, as I said, I'm not sure whether that changes. Not to mention the fact you bring a guy in and so what, Perfetti's off the second line, like right off the bat, just like that. I mean, it does add some other wrinkles in. But to me, it was an improvement at 2C. And if you didn't get that, it was depth at the center position. And to me, that was the one thing that was sort of disappointing about it. Never mind the fact that the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche got significantly better. I watched that Colorado game on Saturday night. Dude, they are a problem. And we focus so much on Brock Nelson. Their third line looks a hell of a lot better with Charlie Coyle in the mix right now. And again, that was one of those deals where, I mean, the Jets did not have the asking price for a player like that. Like Casey Middlestat got traded for him, a younger player with more offensive upside, with a much brighter future, shall we say. Charlie Coyle's 33, but man, he would have helped a team like Winnipeg. But again, they were looking for a player. This wasn't prospects. This wasn't picks. This is a guy that would come in and kind of reset the time frame that you've got in on it. So
my biggest takeaway from the trade deadline, I think others share this view as well. The Jets, they need to win their division. They really need to win their division, and let Colorado and Dallas beat the pulp out of each other. And so win your division, play the wild card, whether that's Vancouver or Calgary or Utah or St. Louis, maybe even Minnesota, because the Wild are in a bit of a free fall. But whoever it is, it's not Colorado or Dallas, and it's not Vegas or Edmonton. So you avoid the powerhouse Western teams, and you hope that you can take care of business in the first round, and whoever emerges from like a Colorado-Dallas epic battle, that you hope that they're a weakened opponent because they've gone the distance against a heavyweight, and that you can try and then take advantage of that. But yeah, like Colorado's not catching the Jets, so really at this point, if they don't win the division, Huss, they're going to play Colorado in the first round, because the only team catching Winnipeg would be Dallas, which would knock Winnipeg to second, which would mean playing Colorado. And no offense to the Wild, but I think Colorado, they've now climbed into that third spot. They're not leaving that third spot. That's where they're going to finish. The Wild will be a wild card team. And if they don't get their game together, they could slip right out of a wild card spot, because look out, they only have about a 6-point cushion over the ninth place team right now in the West. But yeah, so if you're the Jets, you do not want to play the Avalanche in the first round with the way they've loaded up and the recent playoff history of last year. So you've got to win that division so that you're playing someone other than Colorado in round one.
Yeah, well, and listen, I mean, no one whoever wins the Central is winning the West. I think we can safely say, like, if somehow Dallas is able to catch Winnipeg, they'll have done it at a level where they're not getting caught by Vegas or for Edmonton or the Los Angeles Kings. Really, Vegas is the one team that would have a legitimate shot at doing that, and they're 10 back of Winnipeg right now.
Right, not happening.
So. Yeah, you're right. And I mean, I'm already freaking out about the out-of-town scoreboard every night. I mean, I'm watching these games. I mean, last night I'm like, could Vancouver do us a favor? But I mean, listen, Jet fans are a little freaked out by what's taken place elsewhere in the division. And you want to know, here's a weird schedule anomaly, Mike.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
So for all these like back-to-backs and 4 games in 6 nights and 5 and 8, the Dallas Stars played in Edmonton. They played in Vancouver. Their next game is in Winnipeg on Friday. Like, I would imagine.
Same road trip.
Are you sure? I have a feeling they're going back to Dallas for 3 days and then coming here on Friday or Thursday.
Right. But it's technically the same road trip. Like, they don't have a home game in between. I actually wondered, I don't know what their plan is, Huss. I wondered if they're like not going into the mountains for a few days to get massages and, sit by the fire and have a team bonding session. But yeah, it's very strange. So how's this? We can now say that both the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars control their fate when it comes to first place, because Dallas is 6 points behind Winnipeg, but they have a game in hand and 2 head-to-head games remaining against the Jets. So if you're Dallas, you just got to win that game in hand, and then you've got to beat Winnipeg in your 2 head-to-heads, and you've got to beat them clean in regulation so they don't get a point. That would put you in a dead heat with the Jets, but you'd now own the tiebreaker because you'd have more regulation wins because you beat Winnipeg twice clean. And I believe Dallas right now is 1 regulation win behind the Jets with that game in hand.
No, they're 3 back. They're 3 back.
Of regulation wins?
Of regulation wins. So
they would then, so if they were to win their game in hand in regulation.
Oh, regulation. Sorry. ROW is the
overtime,
first one.
yes.
And if that was tied, then yes, you are right. So
correct. So Dallas can say right now, we control our fate. If we win every game we have left on our schedule, we will finish first. But the Jets can say the same thing. And in fact, the Jets are obviously they're the team that's 6 points up, but it certainly magnifies every game remaining, including this Friday, which is just going to be a massive tilt against what will be two rested teams, Huss, because the Stars will really be rested. As you mentioned, they will have been off since last night, and the Jets will play tomorrow and then not until Friday. So you're going to have two teams with a ton at stake and no excuse in terms of the energy level. That's going to be an epic Friday night here at the downtown rink.
And, I mean, I'm sure you have too, just going through the remaining schedules of both of these teams.
Yes.
And I mean, you look at the Jets, obviously they've got New York, not a playoff team right now. They get Dallas at home. They go to Seattle, not a playoff team. Vancouver's right on the bubble. At Edmonton, certainly a playoff team. You get Buffalo at home. Washington, great season. New Jersey, struggling right now, but still a playoff team. Vancouver, LA, Vegas. And then you do have Utah, St. Louis, that road game in Dallas, Chicago, home to Edmonton, and Anaheim at the end of the season. Looking at Dallas's schedule for the remainder of the year, they've got this huge game in Winnipeg on Friday. Sunday night, they're in Colorado. That'll be one that I think people will be tuning in.
Yeah.
But then Anaheim, Tampa, Philly, Minnesota, Edmonton, Calgary, Seattle, Nashville. I mean, a whole bunch of teams that are under the playoff line. Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Vancouver, home against the Jets, and then they finish up with Utah, Detroit, and Nashville. The Stars are going to be pretty big favorites in most of their games the rest of the way. So I'm sort of with you. This game on Friday night for Winnipeg, in a lot of ways, like if you can win that game in regulation and you get those extra 2 points, you put yourselves in a great spot. If that goes the other way, it is game on for the Central Division. And that is something that the Winnipeg Jets absolutely, and I feel, and we heard that even before the deadline, players like Kyle Connor saying, hey, we're looking to go out, close out this division and get the number one seed. That is clearly, and they put themselves in a situation where that absolutely should be the way they're feeling right now. But man, that game Friday night. First of all, get your win against the New York Rangers tomorrow night before you even start thinking about Dallas. But it's hard not to circle that one on the calendar, and then April 10th in Dallas as well.
Yeah, and that game in Dallas on April 10th, that it could come down to that game, really. But yeah, I mean, so here we are on Monday afternoon, Huss. By Friday night, Winnipeg's lead in the division could be anywhere from 10 points to 4, depending on how these next two Jets games shake out. And I not only literally is that a big gap, I think psychologically that's a big difference. And then you even look ahead to Sunday where Dallas then plays Colorado and the Jets play Seattle. Again, at this time next week, and when we chat next Monday, Winnipeg's lead could be anywhere from 2 to 12. So it's a big week in Jetsville.
Yeah, and in reality, it'll probably be somewhere in the middle of those, and we'll be having this game conversation for you for a few weeks. Mike, great stuff. What's coming up in the Free Press is the team gets back home for 2 huge games, and obviously got a chance to speak to Luke Schenn, who we're going to have for our listeners coming up in just a minute.
Yeah, so I'll have a piece on Meet the New Guy, introductory piece on Luke Schenn, and then Kenny and I will have tag team coverage tomorrow, of course, of the big game against the Rangers. And I'm on the next road trip, so I guess when we chat here next week, I'll be probably in Vancouver by next Monday when we chat. So looking forward to that. But for now, big week at home, 2 big games, and looking forward to it.
Great chat as always, Mike. Thanks for doing this.
You bet. Enjoy the week, Huss.
All right, appreciate it. All right, let's get to, we will have Luke Schenn coming up in just a minute. Before that, though, I want to get to fan feedback, brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. No added fees, everybody, no fees. When you go to fansfirst.ca and you click on a ticket and you see the price, that price is what you pay. And certainly take it from a season ticket holder that on occasion needs to use Fan First services. Amazing customer service, quick payment the very next business day after the game. A great resource if you are unfortunately not able to use a pair of tickets for a game. All right, I asked you all, what does everyone want to see the third pairing look like tomorrow? And we've had a plenty of these. I think the number one choice on this list is Luke Schenn and Hayden Fleury. Gilbert Marion, Miller Time, a few other people, Schenn, and someone other than Logan Stanley. More Fleury, Schenn. Matt Hyman says Pionk Schenn. I don't know who the hell is going to be playing with Dylan Sandberg in that case. Maybe Matt wants to see a top four stand. I'm not sure. Lots of Fleury and Schenn. And listen, I get it. Coming off yesterday's game, which was a tough one for Logan Stanley. I mean, in the games that they win, like Friday night, obviously, there's nothing glaring, and you say, well, hey, listen, another big win for the team. They're in first place. Why would you change anything? And you look back to the couple games that they've lost, and obviously 64, unfortunately for him, popping up in the wrong spot on the video. Keep it coming. Miller Time, Schenn and Salmonson. Geez, we're going to promote Elias to the NHL and move him to his off wing. Ballsy move on that one. Anyways, fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. All right, let's hear from Luke Schenn. The newest member of the Winnipeg Jets spoke today, and I guess he started things off by talking about getting picked up at the airport by Mark Scheifele. Here's the newest member of the Jets.
The Mark Scheifele welcoming committee last night, did you?
Yeah, he's my billet dad now for now, so I'll send him my per diem to pay for a couple meals here.
Obviously nice to have a new teammate kind of welcome you to town.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everyone's been very welcoming, and actually for as long as I've played and had a lot of teammates, I've never played with anyone from this organization anywhere else, I don't think. So no Shifes a little bit, and Morrissey from just obviously mutual buddies, and then he reached out, which is super nice of him. But everyone's been very welcoming, and it's exciting for another new chapter.
Picked up by Scheifele, staying at Scheif's place. Mark, the billet dad of the Winnipeg Jets. Here's Schenn on who else he knew just in this organization.
Well, there's a couple people I know, like the coaching staff. I've played for Scott Arniel like years ago in the World Championships, and then I had Davis Payne in LA and Dean Cheveldayoff in Toronto as well. So I'm familiar with the coaching staff. But when I heard the news, I mean, it's been a whirlwind of a week, put it that way. It's been a crazy journey, I guess, my career, and this is just another unexpected chapter. So anytime I try to think I got things figured out, or a little stability, or think I can predict the future a little bit, is exactly when things go a little sideways. So it's it's been a whirlwind of a week, and obviously traded twice in a day and a half. I mean, just the whole thing has been it's been a little overwhelming, I would say, and obviously excitement at the same time. But you're dealing with just a lot of emotions and family back in Nashville. So it's been a crazy transition, but obviously you're coming to a first place team here, and it's exciting. Great group of guys.
Yeah, I know. Luke mentioned his family back in Nashville. Of course, the Jets traded for him from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and as Mike mentioned, he asked him about his time as a Pittsburgh Penguin. Here's what Schenn had to say about that.
You know what? Well, that's a story in itself that we can bring up another time. But yeah, flew there to meet the team, and yeah, didn't talk to, didn't even meet anyone. Just didn't even go to the morning skate. Had to talk with Kyle, and figured out, that there's, multiple teams with some offers, and they were going to go that direction. And the only guy I actually ended up meeting face to face was, Crosby, and talked to him for a little bit, in the morning, and yeah, didn't even get. Which is actually better. You don't want to go there and shake everyone's hand and meet everyone and get new gear to, so that's another story in itself that, I don't need to get into right now.
So probably not, I guess, is what we can deduce from that. Jets don't play Pittsburgh anyway, so probably not an issue this year. Although with another year on his deal, maybe next year there'll be the homecoming, the reunion, the welcome back. For him. Schenn, of course, didn't join the team till today. He was in Vegas. He talked about his weekend and just being in Vegas for deadline day and finding out where he was headed.
Yeah, but I mean, even before then, I had a sense. Obviously, I, pretty good pulse on what was going on, and I had a relationship in Toronto with Kyle Dubas and Jason Spezza as well too. So, I picked up the phone a couple times and called them. You have an agent, but when you've played this long and you have relationships, and sometimes you just talk, face to face, man to man, of kind of what the situation is. I had a pretty good understanding, and I still showed up there in case their intention originally in trading was to keep me, but when you had teams coming in with offers, obviously it made sense from their standpoint to based on where they're on as a team right now. So,
all right. So, that's enough about his time in Pittsburgh. He's now a Winnipeg Jet, and Luke Schenn talked about how his Cup experience can help his new team.
Well, one step at a time here. Obviously, I just want to get familiar with the group of guys here, and like I said, we've played them this year, and there's just no real holes in the lineup. They're a deep team. They're a big team, skill, fast. Obviously, unbelievable goaltending. So, you just kind of want to see where you fit in. But obviously, on a personal level, I got a little bit of playoff experience, and I just try to help out wherever I can. And I think, before you kind of start talking playoffs, I just want to get situated here and fit in the first couple games. And it's always a transition. So, I'll take it one step at a time.
Topic Schenn covered and was asked about was just to compare. Listen, the guy's been with a number of teams. He's been traded on a few occasions. Last year, he went to the Leafs to try to help them get over that first round hump. Certainly, the Jets don't have they don't have the playoff history of the Leafs. Of course, they have won some series and went to the conference finals back in 2018, but. This is about moving past the first round and seeing what's possible after that. Here's Schenn compared the two deadline deals.
Well, I guess similar situation where I guess they were looking to have a first round win and get over the hump. I guess that way. Playing in the Canadian market, obviously there's pressure, and I enjoy it. There's nowhere else you'd rather be playing hockey in the playoffs in the Canadian market. So I'm excited, but obviously there's a lot that goes into it. There's the physical element that goes into it. Teams are so wound up in the first round, and you look how good the Central Division is right now. It's there's no weaknesses. It's going to be tough, but when it comes down to the playoffs, it's just there's a lot of things that go into it. Mentally is probably the biggest part of it, and it turns into a man's game out there. That's the biggest thing, and it's all about defending, and that's how you win. That's how you win in this league, and every battle counts, every puck play counts, and it just there's a lot of things that go into it. We'll touch on that later on, but like I said, excited to get the opportunity here, and it's been a crazy whirlwind of a week and balancing a lot of things, obviously hockey wise and things at home and stuff like that. So it's just been crazy, but I'm looking forward to getting going here tomorrow.
Remo, did you catch that clip from Schenn in that answer? Paul Maurice somewhere was smiling, talking about it turning into a man's game come the playoffs. That is one big man. You're muted. All right. Well, Remis will join us afterwards, but we always joked about Maurice's comments about being a man's game. Well, it's not untrue, and they got a big man in Luke Schenn, who is with the team right now. You know, he talked about everything else that goes along with being traded. Here's Schenn on just how one manages the off-ice transition to a new team and everything that goes with it.
I mean, one thing I always do, like, you know, I've always done this every team I play in, is I'm big in getting the guys together on the road and, you know, going out for dinners and that sort of thing, getting to know everyone. And to me, like, that's just as big of a part as anything on the ice, is you getting all the guys together off the ice and, you know, not even talking hockey sometimes, just kind of, you know, getting together and having some laughs. So I've always, I think, thought that's been really important collectively, is the better you get to know your teammates and get closer off the ice, is it's only going to translate on the ice. So yeah, I got a lot of buddies throughout the league, and I think that's the one thing that I've always remembered throughout the course of my career. A lot of the time I don't remember, you know, good games, bad games that guys have had, or teammates, goals scored, or bad plays. It's getting to know the personalities and the stories shared, and that's one of the biggest things for me. And the closer you get to one another, is the more you know, you get tighter on the ice and want to do whatever it takes for the guy next to you in that room.
All right, that, you know, interesting comments there. I mean, we've heard, you know, even before he was traded to the Winnipeg Jets, just how beloved Luke Schenn has been by previous teams and previous teammates, and I think that was a pretty good window into the sort of the guy that he is and what he brings to the table. Of course, he's coming to Manitoba, not too far away from his home province of Saskatchewan. Here's Schenn on being from Saskatchewan and playing somewhat close to home.
You know, of course, Saskatchewan people, you know, well, it's split. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of Oilers and Flames fans, and there's lots of Jets fans. But no, there's no question everyone's excited. I mean, it's a prairie team, and yeah, people are fired up on the hockey standpoint, and obviously given the position that, you know, the Jets are in this year and how great of a year everyone's talking about. It's not just people in, you know, Saskatchewan. It's people across the league are obviously taking notice of the Winnipeg Jets this year. So yeah, it's exciting to be a part of, and yeah, totally. I wasn't expecting it at all, and here we are, and I'm looking forward to getting going.
Well, and of course, once they mention Sask, we start thinking about our great CFL rivalry. And Rennie asked the question that we all wanted to know. Luke Schenn, will you be cheering for the Bombers now moving forward?
Have you switched allegiance to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
I don't refuse. No, I'll be wearing I'm bleed green, Rough Rider guy through and through. Sorry, you can't convince me on that one. Sorry.
All right, and one final clip from Luke Schenn, and allow me to Barry Horowitz myself with the self-pat on the back. If you were with us late in the program, Connor Remis and I all made a prediction for what numbers the players would wear. I guessed 12, Connor guessed 26, and Remis guessed 3 for Brandon Tanev. We all struck out there. But guess who had number 5 for Luke Schenn? That's right, me. So I'll take the W on that. But we wondered, well, how did he end up with 5? Certainly Brendan Dillon used to be 5, and he was a big dude. I'm sure the jersey fit him. Here's what Schenn had to say about now the number on the back of his jersey, 5 with the Jets.
Actually, my son asked me why I'm wearing number 5, and it's back to the Kelowna Rocket days. That's the last time I wore number 5. That was when I played junior in Kelowna. I've been number 2 throughout the course of my career, and then in Philly, 2 was retired they had it retired by Mark Howe, so I had 22, and then in LA it was taken. I went 52, and then here, I mean, I always try to go number 2, but obviously DeMello's been here a long time, and I actually jokingly texted Brendan Dillon. He's buddy asked for his blessing to wear his old number 5, so he's good at that.
All right, so he's got the blessing from the former brute wearing number 5, Remis, and there you have it. You know, you heard that he wore 52 before. Your guess of 42 was not bad, but 5 ended up being the number.
Yeah, we put some guesses in. I had Tanev at 3. He picked 73. I figured it'd have a 3 in it. 7-3 kind of looks like 13.
It does, yeah. Just a different font on the first number.
Yeah, so I like that pick, and that's Toffoli's number. Forwards do wear 73. I thought maybe he'd break the mold, go with a forward wearing a single digit, or the low single digit. Don't see that too often. And Luke Schenn, I thought he'd have something with the 252 is Coughlin. So 42. It's kind of like 44, common defensive number. Sure, why not go 42? But I think 5 certainly fits him and fits the guys who've worn 5 in the Winnipeg Jets organization before. He did have Brendan Dillon's blessing on number 5. Very important. Us, but also Mark Stewart wearing number 5. And someone noted Lucas Spiza wore 5.
Spiza.
Here, I saw that.
Nicely done.
Let me double check who else wore 5 here. Kulikov was 7, correct?
Yeah, Cooley was 7.
I forget
So
who
was
else.
Keaton Ellerby.
Was he? Yes, he was. I saw someone wearing a Keaton Ellerby jersey at a game.
Wow.
Legendary jersey. So let me figure out if there's one more. Like maybe someone else can match it for me.
Yeah. Or did we get Kulikov back? There's a lot of Kulikov in there. I thought he was, maybe he was 5 with us and he was 7.
Okay, let me just double check.
On the Panthers.
Let me double check. And this is some interesting trivia. No, he's always been 7. He wore 5. Oh, no, sorry. He wore 5 here for 2 years and then switched to 7 for a year.
Okay.
Sorry, I take it back. He wore 5 here for 2 years. I forgot that.
So he did both. Little numerology segment.
Well, how about
Here
this?
on WST.
How about this trivia question? Brandon Tanev is one of a select group of players who played for the Jets, played for another NHL team, and then played for the Jets again. Can you name some of the other players who have done that?
Well, Matt Hendricks.
Yes.
I know he's one.
That is
because
one of
we
them.
played the clip at the end of the show. If you want to go back, right at the end of the program on Friday, we did play the clip from our TSN show when we were live and we had a trade breaking, and it was the reacquisition of Matt Hendricks. That is a good one if you'd like to see it. Guys that were Jets that then came back afterwards. Hendricks, Tanev, who? Okay. Well, LB.
Yeah.
How many are there?
Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 others. So you said Hendricks. Who'd you say? LB.
Hendricks, LB, Tanev.
Hendricks, LB. And there's a couple that I think you could count, but in terms of playing for an NHL team in between stints, they do not count. But
okay, well, just give us the rundown.
Okay, so Appleton was on Seattle.
Oh, good point.
Eric
obviously.
Comrie bounced around.
Coms.
Stasny. Did we say him?
No,
Hendricks?
we didn't.
Hendricks. And people want to say Burmistrov. He went to Russia and came back, but did not play for...
Doesn't count.
And then people are saying Marco Dano. So he got claimed on waivers by Colorado, then came back to the Jets, then signed with Columbus. Then he signed a 2-way deal with the Jets organization, but never actually played for the Jets a second time. So he only played for the Jets for technically one time, even though he was in the organization. Oh, people are saying Rick Bowness. You can count Rick
Bones. Okay.
Rick Bowness, and then who else? People are saying Scott O'Neill and Rick Bowness. Sure. And then so Burmistrov and Dano.
No, Burmy does not count.
Oh yeah, so I didn't count those, but you could make an
Dano
argument.
did go to 2 other NHL organizations and came back.
He signed back. Sorry, he signed back with the Jets, but never played.
Yeah,
with in the NHL.
So we never got to see if he had a new number when he actually got back because he never made it back.
Oh, people are saying Capo Kakinen. Does that count? Let me see. I only was looking through Hockey DB. He played with. He's never played a game with the Jets, so I'm not counting him. He's just been in the. You know what? Guys get picked up on waivers all the time. He never played with the Jets. He's never suited up for a game. I guess he's backed up. But
was there a time where he was with the organization for a stint before this?
This season when he went to Colorado and then came back. Cabo Cacken started the season with the Jets.
Waiver pickups. Oh, okay. Well,
But Cabo, interestingly enough, he does on like going by Hockey DB. He has 0 games played for the Jets because he's only backed up a couple. I don't know.
Yeah,
one game. So I'm not counting.
A little bit with the Moose. All right, let's. And Doobie says, "Hey, what's up, Doobie? 55 does still have the goats." So I am looking forward to hearing from Schenn and Tanev if they are staying with Scheifele for a few days. Their thoughts on the fact that there are goats running around the Scheifele compound. Listen, before we get to the Coolbet Lines, shout out to our friends at Canadian Club during these times. Oh, listen, you don't need to have a trade war to want to get the best in Canadian whiskey. But when you are heading to your local Manitoba liquor marts, we focus on the best in Canadian spirits. You know who's at the top of the list? The original Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club, since 1848. When you're popping down to your local Manitoba liquor marts, make sure to check out the Canadian Club display with the Canadian Club Original, the Canadian Club Classic, the Canadian Club 100% Rye, and know you are getting the best in Canadian whiskey if it says Canadian Club on it. And hey, cannot wait for summer and to get out to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. I know Pitt and the gang are getting ready to get out there for another amazing year at one of Manitoba's most beautiful, unique, and one-of-a-kind fly-in fishing resorts where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. If you're interested in whether it be a friend's trip, a corporate outing, something more, get on over to AikensLake.com and see everything that Aikens has going on, and give them a buzz or talk to Pitt, Julie, and the wonderful Terren family about making an Aikens stop part of your summer plans. Again, on all socials at Aikens Lake and online at AikensLake.com. All right, let's get to the Coolbet Lines. And as we do this, thanks again to everyone that joined us for last night's poker tourney with the Lock Shop, Winnipeg Sports Talk and Edmonton Sports Talk. Shout out to Schickster for representing the Peg very well. He finished 4th, was our top WST entrant into the mix. Dusty made it to the final table for the first time. He was quite happy about that, and he had a fun stream last night as well, which we'll have to get involved with as we move forward. But don't have a date for next month's tourney, but just keep it locked on Winnipeg Sports Talk and our socials, and we'll keep you up to date on that. Man, I'm disappointed that the Briar's over, and shout out to Matt Dunstone for an incredible run. My run is Briar Tuck, hitting all the Briar bets. Well, it did end. I had to support Dunstone in the final against Brad Jacobs, but we had the Jacobs-Dunstone final matchup. We had plus 425 on Gushu to finish 3rd, and we had that nice combo that we put up before the event of Dunstone and Jacobs to win their respective pools. So it was a fun Briar, and congratulations again to the Buffalo boys, both Matt Dunstone and Reed Carruthers teams, who were 2nd and 4th respectively at the big event. Well, no Briar, but we do stay on the ice tonight. 4 games in the National Hockey League. Starting off with the Edmonton Oilers in Buffalo to take on the Sabres. Sabres, losers of 6 in a row. Edmonton, minus 189 tonight. Kind of surprised that number didn't start with a 2. But, you know, I was talking to Dusty today in the Lock Shop. In recent history, they had one big win, but there's been a lot of like 3-2 games, close ones. Still like the Oilers to win this one tonight. Huge game for the Ottawa Senators. And the Sens, man, what a scene at the Canadian Tire Center on Saturday. Brady Tkachuk scoring the overtime winner. Sens come back from down 3-1 midway through the 3rd to win, chanting his name. Everything seems good again, despite his best buddy Josh Norris being traded the day before. Sens are in a playoff spot. Huge game against Detroit that's chasing. Ottawa minus 175 favorites tonight. The Blackhawks are in Colorado to take on the Avalanche. That is a mismatch of epic proportions. Colorado minus 526. And then the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Utah HC, and the Leafs only minus 114 favorites. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm backing the Leafs tonight. I'm making them the play of the day. Oh, and there's a lot of pressure on this one because 2 weeks ago, I went 5-0. Dusty followed it up with 4-0 last week. We didn't do one on trade deadline day. It was just too busy. So we are 9-0 right now, looking to make it 10 in a row tonight. And I don't know if I'm nuts, but I'm putting my faith in the Toronto Maple Leafs at -114 for today's play of the day. We'll throw that up on the Coolbet socials a little later on. We did put together a little partner parlay for tonight. We got a nice number on it too. We're going to take the Oilers in regulation. So -115 as opposed to -119 is the number. We'll take Oilers in reg. We're going to take Ottawa Senators money line, Maple Leafs money line, and that one's boosted from +452 to +520 right now in the combo cards. We got the Monday Night Super Boost, which is a Draisaitl point and a Marner point. That's at +105. We've got the Canuck combo, McDavid over 1.5 points and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander over 29.5 points. That one's boosted up. Wow, almost doubled from +181 to +201. The shot prop tonight, Hyman over 2.5, DeBrincat over 2.5, Gunther over 2.5, boosted to +455. And the points from the point, the newcomer, Jake Wallman with the Oilers, Jake Sanderson with the Senators, and Cale Makar, that one's boosted up to +501. Lamplighters, there's a nice DGen Den parlay. We got a Darnell Nurse shots over Moritz Seider and Nakash boosted to 401. And wow, we've already got some props for the Players Championship. Oh, and Live Golf Singapore. So anyways, check that out right now. And and by the way, we do have the Curling Nation combo for Canada's men's and women's team to win the Worlds, boosted up to +479. All sorts of great combos right at the top of the page. You can also check the exclusives for the Edmonton Sports Talk Parlay and the Winnipeg Sports Talk Parlays, sometimes the Lock Shop as well when we do it. It's all there at coolbet.com. If you haven't played at Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Oh, and by the way, speaking of golf, this is the Players Championship weekend or week. Players odds are already up, and a brand new promotion where you can grip it and rip it with a 30% profit boost every tournament week. So if you're making a bet for the Players this week at Coolbet, you'll have a little green box. You can only do it once, so figure out your favorite pick and then click that button for a free 30% profit boost. For the Players, all there over you at Coolbet, and don't forget noon before WST over on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel, myself and Dustin Nielsen with daily episodes of The Lock Shop. Speaking of golf, Remis, did you get a few swings in on PGA 2K25 on the weekend?
No, didn't have. We had the poker last night. I was editing Connor's Jets Weekly, sending out the newsletter. It's all work for me. I don't have much time to hit the sticks these days, so I'll have to fire it up. I know I got it. I know you can be Shooter McGavin. So I haven't.
Can you be Shooter? Okay, I did not see Shooter. I made my own guy.
It has. I don't want to be my own guy. I don't have time to. You go create a guy in a game. You could spend 2 hours picking all the stuff. Just give me Shooter McGavin. That's the only guy I want to be.
Well, who knows? We might do a stream because shout out to our friend, my guy Ramon over at 2K. He sent us over a couple copies of the game. We're locked in.
Yes.
And we will be playing. But I did get a couple of. You know what I'm going to do? We're going to do we'll do a DraftKings contest for the Players, and we'll have an added bonus if you win the DraftKings tourney. I've got a PlayStation code and a Steam code. So either one of those, we'll give those out through the contest. So as I said, I'll put it up. If you're in the WST league already, you should see it. I'm going to make it right after the show today. And otherwise, we'll let you know about it over the next couple of days. But the Players kind of feels like a major. So let's do a DK contest. We'll do that. And then, as I said, we'll have a copy of PGA 2K25 for you PlayStation guys or Steam guys. Fortunately, no Xbox because Remis and I got those Xboxes last year and we're locked in. And we may do a stream of a game. If we can get Remis away from slaving over all the other business of WST, maybe we'll do a stream at some time. It would be fun. And maybe we'll go head-to-head in that tennis game too, although I haven't gotten into it too much.
Yeah, man. I used to love playing Virtua Tennis in the Sega Dreamcast days. They used to have it at U of W in the basement there, and I would go rock that arcade machine. So big tennis game guy. So I'll have to, I got to check these out. I got to find some time here. I'll have a couple days with the Jets off. No game tonight. And they play tomorrow against the Rangers. And, Wednesday, Thursday off as well before the biggest game of the year, Friday against Dallas.
Oh, I'm already ready. I'm ready for Friday already, if that makes any sense. I cannot wait. I'm looking forward to tomorrow night's game, but man, that one. Now, the minute you mention Xbox, there's all Schickster, Xbox sucks guy. I disagree. The controller, way better on the Xbox. That was always the difference for me. Did not like the PS controller as much as the solid nature of the Xbox controller. The good thing is, though, it's cross-platform. So I'm pretty sure if you're a PS5 guy, you can play Xbox guys, you can play Steam guys. I did do a matchmaking on the weekend, and I think I was put up against a computer guy. And I did take him out. I'm 1-0.
It doesn't matter anymore. Every game there's not that many exclusive games anymore, and you can play online cross-play. So I don't have time for fanboying so hard one way or another. It doesn't matter. There you go.
Yeah, I just have my take is completely around the computer. Everything else is pretty much the same. The games look the same, they operate the same, and now they can play. If you are on PGA 2K25, you can add me at Hustlerama. I'll be swinging it probably later on tonight.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely. Well, this is a nice, quiet night. It was a pretty wild weekend. We got a game tomorrow night. I'm going to do my best to stay in tonight, get a little work on the 2K25, and then be ready to go for game day tomorrow. Rangers in town tomorrow night, Remis, and the debut of Luke Schenn. So big. Every game now is so big, but especially with Dallas being off all week before the game on Friday, it's a game you really feel like you got to have, because by the time Dallas comes to town on Friday, they'll have 2 games in hand. The goal for the Jets, of course, is to have them come to Winnipeg with an 8-point deficit in the division, as opposed to the 6 that the Jets currently have over Dallas, and the Stars have the 1 game in hand.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Jets, Stars, big Friday night game. But first, the Rangers. But we all are looking ahead to this Dallas game. Big 2-game homestand, a couple days in between. Nice to get some rest after this road trip. And the Jets do head out west next week. Seattle on Sunday, then Vancouver and Edmonton, and then back at home. That's the last week of March, where in 2 weeks, Ovechkin. How close will he be to the record? That should be a big week too with the Devils here on the Friday. So some big games coming up tomorrow. First off, tomorrow Rangers, looking forward to seeing Panarin, JT Miller now on the Rangers. How are they going to fare? They've really turned it around since that trade. It is amazing to see the contrast in results from JT Miller and Elias Paterson. What a situation. That was. I mean, that's all I could say. What a situation.
To quote Roscoe Pico Train.
Yeah, what a situation. Like, incredible.
Just looking at the chat here, Garrett Subway, agree on the PS5 controllers. They're just not as good. T. Will, shocked. Wait, Huss has the Xbox controller at the ready? Yeah, as I said, I'm getting ready to swing it right after.
What do you mean?
I
got mine right here too. Wait, who doesn't have a controller at their desk?
Well.
Yeah, what's going on?
And Theo Seegers, Huss, I would wreck you. Hey, I am willing, ready, and able, Theo. You add me or send me a DM, and we'll see what's up. Again, longtime listeners know I got down with this game as the Golf Club 2019. I've had the guys from HB Studios on the show when they launched 21, when they launched 23. That's, I guess, how we were on their radar for a couple of codes. So I'm looking forward to playing with some of you online. As I said, add me. There will be some gaming tonight and maybe later on in the week when the Jets are not playing. But we got to get out so we can get this podcast up for everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. Fun show today to get right back at it. Lots of great numbers, and hopefully we'll continue that right through the playoffs. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and make sure to give a like to the thumbs up to this one before you leave if you haven't already. Thanks to Dennis Bernstein and Mike McIntyre, Remis, for doing a great job getting all those clips and audio from the Winnipeg Jets. Tomorrow, it's a game day edition. Winnipeg and the New York Rangers, while Dallas sits at home getting ready for this big one on Friday night. We'll join you at 1 p.m. tomorrow, getting you ready for Jets and NYR tomorrow. Don't miss it. See you at 1 p.m. Thanks again to all the sponsors that make the show happen every day, and all of you for making us a part of yours. See you tomorrow at 1, everybody.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.